I opened a travel agency in the world of cultivation. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101. Skeletons descend the mountain. The people in the pit were chatting, and the giant long spear was fighting with those people in the sky. No one knew what level of cultivation the giant long had in his life. Now that he was dead and turned into a big spear, he was able to handle the siege of 12 foundation building cultivators with ease. Now everyone understood that the giant long spear had not used its full strength when chasing Jiang Shangying and Qiqing at the beginning. Although it was chasing them closely, it was like a cat playing with a mouse and did not take the two seriously. Even now, it was a 1-on-12 situation, and the 12 people were struggling. The giant long's scales were hard, and ordinary spells did not hurt it. Its body was huge and flexible, and its claws were sharp. It could tear ordinary magic weapons to pieces with one claw. Even if there was an attack that could not be avoided or resisted, it could restore its original form in an instant, turning into a big spear, and its speed suddenly increased, avoiding the attack in an instant. As long as the people who besieged it did not pay attention to keep a distance from it, they would be whipped away by its tail. Some people would fall into a pit when they hit the mountain, and even the seawater could not play a buffering role. Yang Zhao and his companions were so excited watching from the pit below that, if they were not afraid that someone would cause trouble for them later, they would have cheered loudly for the giant long spear. That giant long must have been a great demon when he was alive, and he still has such power even after death. The Luo Yehei clan is really willing to take it out. If I were the Luo Yehei clan, I would definitely keep it in the clan. I can see that you didn't listen carefully to the Luo Yehei clan's introduction to the giant long spear. This giant long will not die well, and it has a lot of resentment. Most people can't hold it. Besides, the Luo Yehei clan is rich and powerful, and this giant long spear is not a good thing for them. At this moment, the giant long turned into a big spear and instantly moved to the front of the people who were besieging in front. The spear shook and restored its body. Its tail slapped those people to the mountain. The mud and water on the top of the mountain were everywhere, and it broke off half of the mountain top. The huge force was transmitted to Yang Zhao and his companions, and several people bounced up from the ground. We can't stay in this pit. Let's retreat a little further. Everyone came out of the pit and followed the force of the water flow without much effort. In less than a few seconds, they retreated more than 200 meters. The water flow in this place was much calmer, but there was nothing to block the water flow. Those with shallow cultivation were swaying in the water. Yang Zhao simply took out her gun and stuck it into the ground, using the gun to stabilize her body. While watching the fight in the sky, she felt a little uneasy in her heart. She always felt that she had forgotten something important, but she couldn't remember it. What was it? When the dragon used its tail to whip to the top of the mountain again, Yang Zhao vaguely saw a grey-white shadow flowing down quickly on the hillside. Those skeletons. Yang Zhao shuddered, pointed at the grey-white, and asked the people around him, "My eyes are not good. Can anyone see clearly that those are skeletons?" Everyone who was looking up at the fight came to their senses. The foundation building cultivator looked up at the mountain and confirmed that the grey-white shadows were skeletons. That's the skeleton, but why are there so many skeletons here? This time, the others also saw clearly. Let's run quickly. Those skeletons can capture the breath of living people. Why don't those skeletons go up? There are many people on the top of the mountain. There is also a dragon on the top of the mountain. They dare not go up. These are soft and afraid of hard. Everyone cursed a few words and saw some grey-white skeletons running towards them. It seemed that there were at least 300 or 400 of them. Now there was no time to watch the excitement. There were only 5 people in their group. They didn't dare to contact these skeletons, so they could only run back. But although there were water repelling beads and everyone used the light body technique, it was much more difficult to run in the water than on land, and the speed could not be increased. The skeleton seemed to have no obstacles and caught up with them in less than a minute. When they saw these skeletons catching up, the few people stood still and launched an attack with magic weapons, trying to repel them. The strength of these skeletons was indeed not strong. Many skeletons fell to the ground as soon as they met. Yang Zhao had come into contact with these things before and knew how difficult they were to deal with. As long as the bones are not broken, these things will reassemble themselves, even if the bones are not your own. Everyone, run quickly, don't let them get you. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw a skeleton that was beaten to pieces groping on the ground, taking some usable bones to reassemble itself, and then standing up and rushing over. The few people shuddered and immediately recalled their magic weapons, not daring to get entangled, and turned around and ran again. As long as a skeleton surrounded them, everyone would attack the skeleton in front, make a path and continue running, not giving the skeletons behind a chance to surround them. Originally, there was another foundation building cultivator in the team, but he relied on his high cultivation level and ran ahead early, leaving Yang Zhao and the other 4 behind as a scapegoat, and in a blink of an eye, his figure could not be seen. Hey, it's good to have a high cultivation level. The cultivator surnamed Wang saw that everyone was a little dejected and couldn't help but comfort everyone. Even if we can't win in the end, we can still break the spell and get out. Don't panic. That's the thing. I've only been here for 2 days, and I'm a little reluctant to let me go out. Don't worry. I won't joke with my life. After a few words, the skeletons surrounded them again, at least dozens of them. Yang Zhao had no choice but to hold the big gun and fight with these skeletons. When they were in the corridor, the place was relatively narrow, and many moves could not be performed. More often, they relied on the help of others to quickly kill out. Now the place is larger, there are fewer people on her side, and the cultivation level has also declined, but there are more skeletons to face. Faced with this situation, she couldn't help but think of Liu Zhengxia. Although the memory Liu Zhengxia left her was terrible, it gave the best way to deal with the siege, and she applied it unconsciously. Yang Zhao's nightmares for several nights were not in vain. At the beginning, when facing the group attack of these skeletons, she was still a little overwhelmed. After fighting for a few minutes, she slowly found the feel for it, and the fighting became smoother and smoother, and gradually she was like a fish in water, and she was able to use her skills freely. Even at the end of the fight, Yang Zhao's eyes reappeared the figure of Liu Zhengxia fighting, and every move was so clear. Yang Zhao shook his head and found that the figure was not his imagination, but really existed in his eyes. It seemed that the illusion still remained in her eyes, probably because the time to remove the illusion was relatively short. Seeing that she couldn't get rid of the shadow in her eyes, she didn't bother about it. Now the most important thing was to face the attack of the skeleton, and everything else had to be put aside. Suddenly a loud shout reached her ears. Liu Zhengxia. Chapter 102, Run. Liu Zhengxia. Yang Zhao was stunned when she heard this. Didn't Master Liu enter the ruins? Didn't he say he couldn't come? She smashed the remaining skeletons with a few shots and continued to run with the crowd. Now the news of the birth of the Jiana Long Spear has swept half of the ruins, and more people are rushing over. The skeletons smelled other people and gradually changed their targets. In the end, the skeletons became more and more scattered. After running for a while, Yang Zhao and the others found that there were not many skeletons following them. Only more than 20 were still following. We don't have to run anymore. Just shoot all these skeletons to death. Everyone nodded and turned to kill them. The skeletons without the advantage of numbers were not worth mentioning at all. It didn't take long for the 4 people to smash all the skeletons in a few seconds. They even kicked any intact bones to prevent them from being used by other skeletons. After doing all this, everyone smiled at each other. Where is this? How far have we run? I don't know, but we can still see the light of their battle from here. We have run more than 20 miles at most. Yang Zhao looked around and felt that the surroundings were very familiar. He should have been near this place before. Are we going back? Why go back? What if we are entangled by the skeletons again? This is true. No one wants to face the skeletons again. Suddenly, someone pointed at the group of light and shadow. Why do I feel that the battle group is moving towards us? After hearing what he said, everyone else began to stare at the group of light and shadow. The speed of the group of light and shadow was not slow, and it was easy to observe that it was approaching quickly. Yes, it is coming to us. Good luck. I thought I would miss such a wonderful battle. That's right, we are called bad luck comes good luck. Everyone looked happy, but Yang Zhao frowned. She felt uneasy, and always felt that something was wrong. As the group of light and shadow got closer and closer, she became more and more anxious. No, she couldn't stay here. Everyone, I feel uneasy, I have to go first. After saying that, without waiting for anyone to answer, she gathered all her spiritual power, turned around and ran. The other three were very surprised by her behavior, but did not stop her. She said she felt uneasy. Why don't we avoid it too? The Taoist surnamed Wang shook his head in confusion. My spiritual sense is also very sharp. I didn't feel any danger. It's probably her own problem. In this way, we run away from her for a while, and it should be fine. Okay, it's a pity for the fight over there. There's nothing to pity. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. Let's go. The three did not hesitate, avoided Yang Zhao's route and ran forward. Yang Zhao on this side became more and more frightened as she ran. Even though she changed direction several times in the middle, the light and shadow of the fight were still coming straight at her. Yang Zhao held the in and out talisman in her hand and crushed it with a ruthless heart. She thought the talisman would send her out quickly, but she waited there for a long time, but there was no movement at all. In an instant, she felt her heartbeat slow down by half a beat. What happened? The spell failed! Exclamation mark. How could it happen at this critical moment? Yang Zhao's hands were shaking a little, but she still held onto a tiny hope and crushed the spell a little more, but there was still no movement. Looking at the fighting light and shadow getting closer and closer, she collected the broken spell, identified the direction, and ran away. This time she ran in the direction of the secret passage, where she found a skeleton that looked like a monk, and signed a contract with him. Regardless of whether the skeleton could help in the end, it was her only tiny hope in this relic, and she didn't dare to give up. But this time, before she ran a few steps, the fighting light and shadow were already in front of her. She only heard the dragon spear screaming, "Liu Zengshi." Yang Zhao's head was confused, and now she was sure that it was this dragon spear that wanted to cause trouble for her. Now in the seawater in the sky, there were at least more than 20 people fighting with the dragon spear. If it weren't for the more than 20 monks who slowed down the speed of the dragon spear, she wouldn't be able to run so far. She looked back and ran forward. No matter what, running was definitely the right thing to do. As she was running, she suddenly felt a chill on the back of her head. She quickly changed her position and hid to the side. The next second, she saw a figure fall into the place where she had just stood at an incredible speed. She felt the ground shaking 3 times, and the waves caused by it made her stand a little unstable. If she hadn't dodged just now, this person would definitely break her bones. But the person himself didn't seem to be seriously injured. He sat up all of a sudden, turned around and flew up again. Yang Zhao saw that he was fine, and continued to run forward. She couldn't protect herself now, so she didn't have the mind to care about others. And seeing that person was full of energy, it shouldn't be a big deal. But how did Liu Zengshi offend the Jiana long spear, and even she herself suffered the consequences? Liu Zengshi, give me back my life. With a roar, 2 more human shells bombarded Yang Zhao. Well, this is still a life and death feud. If other people get involved in this kind of grudge, it is estimated that nothing will end well. She relied on her instincts and turned in a C shape to avoid the attack of the human cannonball. 3 consecutive human cannonballs made the people in the sky more cautious. Hey, the person below, don't be greedy, crush the talisman and get out of the ruins. Yang Zhao recognized that this was Sheng Tsuji's voice. Senior Sheng, my talisman is ineffective. I can't get out, even if I crush it. This sentence surprised everyone who was still fighting. At that time, someone took out the talisman and crushed it, and found that there was really no reaction. It should be that the dragon went crazy and deliberately affected the stability of the surrounding space, so that we couldn't get out. But don't worry, we just need to subdue it. Sheng Tsuji loudly comforted everyone, and shouted at Yang Zhao who was running below. Then run faster. This dragon spear should have a big grudge with General Liu Zengshi. Now it's crazy, and it's very difficult for us to stop it. It's not that I deliberately dawdled, but my cultivation is not high, and I can't outrun you at all. Yang Zhao shouted without turning his head. Everyone, help me share some of the burden. I'll put a talisman on the person below. Two people rushed over and protected Sheng Tsuji. How do you know her? Sheng Tsuji flashed back and left the battle group. Yes, we just went on an adventure together. We were very brave in the battle. He descended quickly and came behind Yang Zhao, who was running. Pa. He put 2 stone talismans on her back and turned back to the battle group. Run. Yang Zhao felt his body lighten and his whole body was as light as a feather. With the blessing of the light body technique, he ran much faster. Thank you, Senior Sheng. Chapter 103, Help. Unfortunately, even with the blessing of the talisman, Yang Zhao could not get rid of the pursuit of the dragon spear. From time to time, she felt a chill on the back of her head, and the next moment, a water dragon and an ice arrow would be thrown down by the dragon spear to attack her. This time, the frequency of human shells was much less. Those who could block it would block it, and those who couldn't block it could only let Yang Zhao pray for good luck. In the face of such a critical moment, her intuition frequently lit up, and she would always give early warnings at critical moments, buying her a little time to dodge. After escaping for a while, the dragon spear found that under its attack, Yang Zhao was actually fine, and was still dodging like a monkey, jumping left and right below, without even a trace of blood. This made the dragon spear even more irritable, and the whole body of the dragon suddenly doubled in size, and those who didn't have time to dodge were directly whipped out. Seeing it go crazy, the people in front immediately increased the intensity of the attack, trying to trap it temporarily. Unfortunately, the dragon driving spear ignored all the attacks and turned back into a big spear, shooting down from the sky. Quick, get out of here. Yang Zhao couldn't even move her legs in an instant and fell to the ground due to inertia. She struggled to turn over, staring at the big spear with her eyes, and put 2 fingers on her forehead. Subtle vacuum. Xingxiao Zhao Gang. Thunder is coming. A thick lightning bolt instantly struck the spear, and the dragon driving spear fell down. This lightning bolt not only struck the dragon driving spear, but the power of the lightning spread in the seawater, and even other people were affected. Although there was an air layer created by the water repelling beads as a barrier, Yang Zhao still felt the electric shock, and she trembled all over, and was in extreme pain. But there was also an advantage to this. Her legs could move instantly. When she got up from the ground, she saw that the dragon driving spear also jumped on the ground, restored its dragon body, and roared loudly. Liu Zengxia. I'm not Liu Zengxia. Are you blind? Can't you see I'm a woman? After saying this to Jiana Langkang, Yang Zhao turned around and ran forward, not daring to look back. She only had 3 divine thunders in total, and she didn't dare to bet that all 3 thunders could kill Jiana Langkang. She had to save the remaining 2 thunders to save her life at the critical moment, so she could only continue to run. The people in the sky woke up from the impact of the thunder and lightning and surrounded Jiana Langkang, who had just been able to swim. They were not the main targets of the thunder and lightning, and their cultivation was much higher than Yang Zhao, and their recovery speed was much faster than Yang Zhao. Jiana Langkang glared at those people who stood in front of it. Get out of my way. Jiana Langkang, you choose one of us as the leader, and we will naturally disperse. Humph. Wishful thinking. The 2 sides had a disagreement and fought again, and this time each one was more ruthless than the other. Yang Zhao's worry was correct. Although the Jiana Lang spear was struck by a thunderbolt, its fighting power was still strong. The more than 20 monks could not suppress it, and it gained the upper hand during the fight. Before she ran far, she was affected by the battle group. For a while, various spells flew around her, and magic weapons swirled around, as if she had encountered a denser raid. There was no safe place. Yang Zhao could only jump up and down to avoid the attacks, whether accidental or intentional, and her speed dropped a little. The Jiana Lang spear lowered its altitude a little, seized this opportunity, and rushed forward, and its tail hit Yang Zhao. Although Yang Zhao also tried her best to lie on the ground and try to avoid it, she was not strong enough and did not completely avoid the attack of the tail. It only touched the edge of the tail and rolled a long distance like a ball. This time, Yang Zhao was covered in mud, scratched, and bleeding. The stone jar on her waist was also broken, and the little octopus inside swam out of the jar and hurriedly grabbed her clothes to prevent it from getting lost. Yang Zhao lay on the ground, took 2 deep breaths with trembling, and got up to continue running. Even though she had enough spiritual power, her speed this time was much slower than before. The pain was affecting her physical strength and willpower. She even wanted to lie there for a moment, but her strong desire to survive urged her to continue running. Every step she took was a lingering love for life. Suddenly, a water dragon rushed over. Although Yang Zhao tried her best to avoid it, the water dragon still brushed past her shoulder. The power of the water dragon made her stagger. In an instant, half of her body was numb, and she seemed to have lost consciousness. Yang Zhao gritted her teeth and continued to run towards her destination regardless of anything. The surrounding scenery became more and more familiar. She could already vaguely see the entrance to the secret passage. Hope was right in front of her, but before she could be happy, the giant long spear found another flaw and hit her with the tail. This time she was directly whipped out. When she hit the ground, she felt her head stiff and there was abnormal pain in her chest. It seemed that her ribs were broken. Yang Zhao raised her head with a struggle and found that she had reached the entrance of the secret passage. She endured the pain and shouted in Chinese, "Master, Master, help. Master, please save Yang Zhao's life. Although I have been typing for 2 months, a novice is a novice. I see that others will add points to their comments, but I have tried for a long time but no one has added it. Is there any reader friend who can teach me?" Chapter 104, Amitabha, my writing assistant is broken and cannot update. Master, Master, help me. Master, please save Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao's mind was focused on the secret passage, holding her breath and waiting for a response from inside. However, she could only hear the sound of other people escaping from the secret passage, but not the response from the skeleton. She was a little desperate, probably because the place where the skeleton stayed was too far away from the exit, and he might not be able to hear Yang Zhao's cry for help at all. Magical spells were flying around her, and Yang Zhao shouted again, without waiting for the other party's response, struggling to get up and continue to escape. As soon as she stood up, she felt a gust of wind behind her head, and her feet pushed the ground hard, rolling to the side. Pa! Boom! The big tail fell from the sky and collapsed the entrance of the secret passage in an instant. In addition to the flying stones at the entrance, the sound of someone calling for help could be heard faintly in the secret passage. Yang Zhao used her arms to block the stones that were collapsing and put her 2 fingers on her forehead. Microscopic vacuum. Xingxiao Zhao Gong. Thunder is coming. Crack. The lightning struck the dragon directly, causing it to roll all over the ground. The entire ground was shaking, as if there was an earthquake. This time, there were more cries for help in the secret passage. Yang Zhao was trembling all over from the lightning, but he didn't care about that. He shouted at the people who were attacking the dragon. "There are people in the secret passage who haven't come out yet. Can you lead this dragon into the air? We want to, but this dragon is determined not to go up." Boom. 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 The dragon rolled on the ground, and the huge force caused the secret passage to collapse again. Yang Zhao regretted it a little. She shouldn't have come here. Not only did she not find any external help, but she also implicated other people. She struggled to get up and shouted, "Give me some time. I will try to get out of the range of the secret passage." She vaguely heard someone talking underground. "Amitabha, let me do it." The Buddhist chanting made her feel like she was hearing heavenly music, and it felt like the sky was bright in an instant. The ground suddenly collapsed, and a big hole appeared. A skeleton stepped out of the hole first, followed by more than 20 monks who supported each other and filed out. Seeing the scene outside, they talked about it. I was wondering who had such great strength. It turned out to be the Gianna Long Spear. Is this Gianna Long Spear crazy? Amitabha, this place is dangerous. Don't stay here. Find a place to heal your wounds. Thank you for your help, senior. Some people saluted and thanked the skeleton, dodging the magic spells flying around, and fled to a distance. Others thanked him and surrounded the Gianna Long directly. "Yang Tanayu, how did you get so badly injured?" The skeleton turned around and saw Yang Zhao. "Master, I'm really sorry. The Gianna long spear came here to hunt me down. I didn't think enough when I was escaping. Don't blame yourself, my friend. No one would think too much when their lives are hanging by a thread. There should be some people trapped in the secret passage here. We can't let it run wild here. I want to meet the Gianna long spear. The skeleton glowed with golden light, and the bones were covered with a layer of illusory flesh and blood. A tall monk wearing a bright red cassock stood in front of Yang Zhao. The monk stretched out his hand and a 9-ringed tin staff broke out of the ground and flew into his hand. He raised one palm and chanted a mantra. Vajrapani Bodhisattva Banzabani, rise. The Gianna long rolling on the ground was slowly lifted into the air by an invisible force. Everyone turned back in surprise, winked at each other, and retreated to the side. The Gianna long spear was a little furious. Who is meddling in other people's business here? Amitabha, it's me. The dragon turned over and lowered his head to look at it. Wow. This is really new. I haven't seen a monk for hundreds of years. I actually ran into a dead monk in this broken ruins. Master, why don't you reincarnate early? Why are you fiddling with a skeleton here? Amitabha, there is a secret passage below the place where you just fought. It is where I'm buried. Now many people are trapped inside because of you. I have no choice but to ask you to go up. You feel sorry for the people in the secret passage. This is easy. Leave the woman behind you to me. I will get up and leave without saying anything. The master stomped the staff in his hand lightly and slowly rose to the dragon's eyes. Master, you are joking. She is behind me. If you want to take her away, you will naturally have to step over my skeleton. The master said calmly and loudly. Do you think I'm afraid of you? You dare to fight me with a skeleton? The dragon opened its mouth, and a thick water dragon rushed towards the monk. The monk swept the water dragon with his staff, and the two of them fought back and forth. Although they seemed to have similar cultivation, the dragon's body was huge and bloated, and it was not as agile as the monk, and the monk often took advantage of the opportunity to hit it. The dragon was not a vegetarian either. After fighting for a few rounds, it simply transformed itself, and a big spear flew up and down around the monk, which was much faster. Yang Zhao took this opportunity to take out the wound medicine secreted by the sunfish from the Kyankan bag, dug out a little, and put it in his mouth, sat cross-legged on the spot, and used his spiritual power to drive the medicine to run quickly. This thing tasted fishy, and tasted like snot, but the medicine was really good. Not long after taking the medicine, she felt much more relaxed, and even the pain was reduced by more than half. The dragon spear could not attack for a long time. Seeing Yang Zhao sitting on the ground and practicing his skills, he fainted and stabbed down with a spear. Donor, I'm still here. Where are you going? The monk swung his staff and hit the tail of the spear, then pulled it back. You are looking for death, bald donkey. The dragon spear was covered with blood mist and stabbed at the monk's head. Yang Zhao felt much better. She stood up and started to run away from the secret passage. The dragon spear was still determined and always wanted to attack. She had to leave here first to prevent the dragon spear from collapsing the secret passage. As expected, as soon as she ran, the dragon spear started to chase her. For the safety of the monks in the secret passage, the monk did not try his best to stop the dragon spear from moving. Yang Zhao ran in front, and a group of foundation building monks followed behind her not far away. The two fighting in the sky also moved slowly with her. But she moved too slowly, and Sheng Tsuji caught up with her. Fellow Daoist, where do you want to go? I'll take you. Let's find a place with few people. Thank you, Senior Sheng. Sheng Tsuji grabbed her collar and moved forward quickly. He led both the heavenly and the earthly parties to speed up. Sheng Tsuji found an open space, put Yang Zhao down, and retreated to the monks behind. I wanted to write a cool story, but I couldn't write it with that kind of cool feeling. My sister recommended that I go to Tomato to learn from her and revise the novel. I listened to her advice and wrote one chapter today. I wish you all a happy new year. Chapter 105. Out. The Gianna long spear in the sky tried to rush down several times, but was blocked by the monk. The Gianna long spear was furious and questioned the monk. Bald donkey, why are you fighting with me here? How long can your thin soul last? Don't you want to reincarnate? The big monk, Amitabha, I have a request for the donor below. In order to save her life, My soul is not worth mentioning. Jiana Long Kyang said disdainfully. You want something from her? Hand her to me. I will do it for you. How about it? The big monk, Amitabha, donor, you don't have to worry about me. Only she can do it. And from what I see from your words and deeds, you should not kill anyone in these ruins. Why do you have to kill that female donor now? He has the spiritual power fluctuations of Liu Zengxia. If Liu Zengxia hadn't beaten me seriously and thrown me to the bottom of the sea, I wouldn't have had my spine dug out and forged into a weapon. Anyone who has contact with Liu Zengxia must die. Every grievance has its perpetrator. Every debt has its owner. If you really want revenge, go find Liu Zengxia. How can you vent your anger on others? I'm a weapon now, so I can do whatever I want. I don't have the compassionate thoughts of you monks. Master, if you don't get out of my way, I will break all your bones. Don't threaten me. I have already made it clear that, as long as you step over my body, I will not be able to do anything. Okay. Don't you want to play with your life? I will play with you. The blood mist of the Jiana Long spear became darker, and it smashed towards the master's head with the surging sea water. The master could not dodge, so he could only raise the 9-ringed tin staff to take it. Clang clang. The huge sound spread with the surging water. Yang Zhao was unstable and was almost washed away by the water. When the two were fighting fiercely, Yang Zhao suddenly heard the whisper of the master monk in his ear. Donor, I have been dead for hundreds of years, and there is little worship left. I have not yet switched to the way of the ghost, and my cultivation is not at all left. I may be able to defeat the dragon spear in a short time, but I will definitely not be able to defeat it in the long run. Donor, you should make plans early. It is best to get out of the ruins as soon as possible. Yang Zhao was frightened when she heard this. She took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down, then lowered her head and muttered to herself. Master, I could have gotten out by smashing the spell, but I don't know what method the Jiana Long spear used to affect the surrounding space. I can't get out, even though I smash the spell. The big monk, that's easy. I'll cast a spell to suppress it here. You just run straight. After running a distance, the broken spell will naturally send you out. But my soul is weak, and I may not be able to suppress it for a long time. You have to be quick. Yang Zhao, Master, don't worry. I understand. But what will you do if I run away? Don't worry, I'm just buying you some time. Once you leave, I can retreat. Those foundation building cultivators are eyeing it covetously and want to subdue it. Once I retreat, they will naturally surround me. Yang Zhao looked at the group of foundation building cultivators next to him. The battle in the sky attracted more and more foundation building cultivators. Now there are more than 30 people standing there. A group of people were whispering there, eager to try. Yang Zhao quickly took out a fasting pill and stuffed it into his mouth, just in case. She had been running for a long time and was already a little hungry. Master, come with me out of the ruins. I'll find a way to send you back to your hometown. No need. I've been here for hundreds of years and I'm used to it. It's important for you to escape. The monk's voice was filled with a hint of sadness. Yang Zhao gritted his teeth and nodded fiercely. I understand. Wait for a while. If you can't follow me out, I'll ask someone to take you out, and I'll definitely let you return to your roots. She trotted all the way to the pile of foundation building monks. Senior Sheng, I have something I want to discuss with you alone. Can we talk in private? The people around them immediately turned their eyes to the two of them, looking like they were watching a good show. Sheng Tsuji raised his eyebrows, bowed his head, and said a few words to the person next to him, and followed Yang Zhao to walk away. He took out a small talisman from his sleeve, and with a burst of spiritual power, it emitted a faint green light. This is a silent spell. You can speak freely about anything you want to say. Yang Zhao, I want to pay you to take the senior in heaven out when you leave the ruins. Oh. He has been dead here for hundreds of years. Most undead are too reluctant to leave their burial place. Have you obtained the consent of the senior for this plan? The senior is willing. He and I are from the same clan. It is our tradition to return to our roots. Sheng Tsuji nodded slightly. This is not difficult. How much silver do you want to pay? It depends on what you mean. I have no objection. Sheng Tsuji thought for a while. 200 taels of silver. Okay. Yang Zhao stretched out her hand to reach into her pocket, and Sheng Tsuji hurriedly stopped her. Wait until I take him out, and then pay the silver. Yang Zhao did not put her hand down, but poured out 5 or 6 gold leaves, and handed them over. Senior Sheng, these are considered as deposits. I will feel relieved if you accept them. Sheng Tsuji chuckled, and took the gold leaves. Okay, I will relieve you. Yang Zhao bowed deeply. Senior Sheng, please. Sheng Tsuji dodged to the side. No need to be polite, you pay the money, and I do the work, it's only natural. The two said goodbye to each other, and Sheng Tsuji turned back. Thank you for your advice. Master, you saved my life, I really don't deserve your thanks. The monk, pay attention, monk, I will cast a spell to trap the dragon spear. Yang Zhao looked up and saw that the monk was covered in golden light, and his flesh and blood gradually disappeared. The pale skeleton inside was turned golden by the golden light. The people below saw this change and talked about it. The one above doesn't look like a ghost cultivator. Is his soul going to disperse? I thought he was going to fight for the Gianna long spear. Fortunately, it's okay. Stop talking nonsense. What good will it do you to anger him? In midair, the monk used a staff to pick up the Gianna long spear far away, pinched the Buddha's finger with one hand, and began to chant. Mani, Bay, Me, Hum. Suddenly, one of his hand bones broke, carrying golden light, and flew out. The hand bone became bigger and bigger, covering the Gianna long spear head on. The Gianna long spear rolled up and down, trying to throw the huge hand bone away. But the hand bone was like taking root, sticking to his body tightly. Moreover, the hand bone was still getting bigger and heavier. The Gianna long spear simply transformed into a dragon body, trying to stretch the hand bone open, but it was in vain, and could do nothing. Seeing this, Yang Zhao raised his spiritual power, and used the light body technique to run away. Bald donkey, let me go. The monk said nothing, still chanting the 6-syllable great bright irony. The hand bone had become as big as a hill, and the huge weight caused the dragon spear to slowly descend, and the speed was getting faster and faster. Boom. A hill fell from the sky to the ground, pressing the dragon spear down. 6 big characters appeared faintly on the hill. Mani, Bay, Me, Hum. The dragon spear kept shaking its head and tail inside, trying to break free, but the hand bone was as heavy as a mountain, and it couldn't move, even if it used up all its strength. It didn't give up, and instantly restored the gun body, trying to take the opportunity to slip out. But who knew that the hill formed by the hand bone seemed to grow in its flesh, and as it shrank, it instantly filled the gap, leaving it no time. From then on, it could no longer move. You bald donkey, with just a dead spirit, how long can you suppress me? When I come out, I will make your soul fly away, and you will not be able to reincarnate. No matter how the Gianna long spear yelled below, the monk just ignored it. Finally, he muttered the 6-character mantra, and exerted magic power on the hill. Seeing the ever-changing battle situation, those foundation building monks shook their heads and admired. What a good spell. No wonder the woman ran away in advance. Does anyone know what spell this is? I don't know, but this spell is so powerful, it should be very famous. Do you think I can buy this spell back if I spend money? The senior above is a dead spirit, and he probably doesn't need money. This Gianna long spear has met an opponent. Although these foundation building monks appreciate this spell, they are not optimistic about the skeleton in the sky, because the skeleton visible to the naked eye continues to struggle with the Gianna long spear, and the golden light on its body is slowly fading. It is estimated that it will not be long before the soul power on the skeleton can no longer support this spell, and that will be the time for the dragon spear to escape. However, after such a long battle, the dragon spear must have consumed a lot of spiritual power. When it comes out, it will be more likely to subdue it. Everyone is ready to fight, waiting for that moment. Sheng Tsuji next to him frowned slightly. He took Yang Zhao's deposit and wanted to take this corpse out. Now he is missing a hand bone. What if he is missing something else in the end? Should he give her a discount after he gets out? On the other side, Yang Zhao didn't see this wonderful scene at all. She didn't dare to look back and ran away, holding the broken talisman in her hand, praying that it would start quickly. Finally, she found that the broken talisman in her hand was slightly warm, showing signs of wanting to start. Suddenly, the sound of a mountain collapse came from a distance. Yang Zhao was startled, and his speed increased a bit. Finally, the broken spell slowly broke free from her hand, and a black shadow rose from the broken spell, instantly growing larger and enveloping her in it. "You can't leave. Stay here." A voice came from behind her, deafening. The transmission speed of the spell that had already been activated suddenly slowed down, like a stuck computer. Yang Zhao turned her head and saw a big gun approaching her quickly in the sky, bringing up a stream of water like a blizzard torpedo. She was sweating all over, staring at the figure and praying silently in her heart. "Faster please, faster." Unfortunately, the prayer was useless, and the speed of the spell did not increase by a bit. The sharp-eyed dragon was getting closer and closer. Yang Zhao estimated the distance, put his 2 fingers on his forehead, and was ready to summon the thunder method at any time. Finally, the dragon gun was less than 100 meters away from her. Subtle vacuum, Xingxiao Zhao Gong, thunder is coming. Click, rumble. The speed of the thunder spell was too fast. Even though Jian alarm gun was well prepared, it could not dodge the pursuit of the thunder spell. It was struck to the ground by the thunder and lightning without any room for resistance. This time Jian alarm gun lay on the ground for a while before struggling to get up. It can be seen that it was injured, and its spiritual power did not seem to be sufficient at the beginning. Except for its rage, it was already tired in other aspects. "You son of a bitch, I will tear you apart." The spell almost covered Yang Zhao's whole body. She raised the spear in her hand and pointed the spear at Jian alarm gun, trying to buy some time. Haha, a tick trying to shake a tree. Jian alarm gun flew in front of Yang Zhao in an instant, opened its mouth wide, and wanted to bite her to pieces. Yang Zhao used both hands to throw the spear towards the mouth of the dragon, trying to attack the upper jaw of the dragon. The dragon closed its mouth, and with a click, Yang Zhao's spear broke into 3 sections. It shook its head and spit out the garbage in its mouth. The big tail behind it slapped Yang Zhao with the sound of wind. Whoosh! Yang Zhao ducked to the side, holding the magic sword given by the old shark, and used her spiritual power to activate the freezing magic circle and the tough sword body on it, and met the tail that swung over again. Clang! The weapons collided, and Yang Zhao was thrown out in an instant. She fell to the ground and lost half of her body. And the big tail was also frozen for a large part. The talisman covered more and more places. She could be sure this time that the power of the Jian alarm spear had indeed decreased. In the past, she could be smashed into a meat pie by a single blow, but now she was not dead. The big tail instantly fell to the ground. Although the ice crystals on it were shattered all over the ground, there was still some white frost hanging on it. Yang Zhao took the opportunity to send out her magic power crazily and thrust the magic sword in her hand and stabbed it fiercely. This tail was too big for her to target, and she could stab it no matter what. The frost that had just gone off the tail was sealed up again. "You thief." The Jian alarm spear cursed angrily, and its huge body instantly shrank. The gun body shook and stabbed towards Yang Zhao's head. A long sword shot straight at him, knocking the tip of the dragon spear crooked. It was Sheng Tsuji who did it, and the foundation building monks behind him had already caught up. The dragon spear did not entangle with him. Over there, the in and out spell had already wrapped Yang Zhao's whole body, and the color was slowly fading. The dragon spear roared and stabbed out with force. Yang Zhao was shrouded by the spell and could no longer see the scene inside the ruins, but when she heard the roar, she tried to lean back, and with a snap, her whole body fell to the ground. Whoosh! The dragon spear shot out with a sound of wind, close to her nose. Yang Zhao stood up, holding the magic sword in both hands, guarding against the dragon spear's attack again. Suddenly, a noise came into her ears, and in an instant she felt like she was in a busy city. Hey, how did this Jian alarm spear come out? Wow, it really is. I thought this Jian alarm spear would have to last for more than 10 years before it could be taken out of the ruins. Suddenly, a loud shout was heard. How dare you act wild outside the ruins? Wait until I come back. Yang Zhao just realized that she had already left the ruins and was now in front of the Luo Yehei tribe's booth. The one who shouted just now was the Luo Yehei tribe member who threw the Jian alarm spear into the ruins last time. I was scared to death. My writing assistant just broke down and couldn't update. I tried for a long time before uploading one chapter. What happened? Follow up. It seems that there are banned words in the second chapter. I was locked. I will try to unblock it. If I can't unblock it, I will rewrite it. Sorry. This is the second time I have been blocked. I wrote a plain text. Chapter 106. Healing. I will make up for the missing 4,000 words tomorrow. Instantly, everyone's eyes were focused on this place. This relic has always been known for its lack of safety. It is more like a performance show for Heishi trade, a place for some young people to play and have fun. No one has died in this relic for 70 or 80 years, and even serious injuries are rare. Unexpectedly, something went wrong this year. The giant long spear actually chased out of the relic to kill people, causing many people to start worrying about the safety of their young people. Shenroi came over in just a moment. Looking at Yang Zhao covered in mud and blood, his eyebrows were furrowed, and his face was gloomy. When Yang Zhao saw Shenroi, his heart was instantly filled with grievances. Master, you don't have to say more, let me see your injury first. He squatted down, stretched out his hand, and put it on Yang Zhao's wrist, and began to explore her injury. The Loisi clan over there also walked over quickly with the giant long spear, and there was also a person in charge of Heishi next to him. The two were also quite depressed. The joining of the Loisi clan was a big breakthrough for Heishi. From now on, Heishi will introduce goods from the Deep Sea tribe on a large scale, to expand the scale of Heishi. Luoyahei is the first Deep Sea tribe that is determined to participate in the sea market. If they can make a success in the sea market and trade normally, they will attract other deep sea tribes to gradually join the sea market. This is an important step in the development of the sea market. They have been warming up for so long in advance, but they didn't expect that such a big trouble would appear on the ruins that were least likely to go wrong in the past. In the past, only cultivators below the foundation building stage were interested in entering their ruins. This time, the Luoyahei tribe used the dragon spear as a signboard to attract many foundation building cultivators to enter the ruins. This ruins is essentially an amusement park for children to play, attracting those young people from various families who have not yet graduated to come and gain experience. When the young people from those big families come, the elders of the family must come as a leader, and as long as someone comes, it will bring benefits. The development time of the sea market is not long enough. If someone dies at this time, then the ruins will be of little use to the sea market in the future. This is a place for business, and harmony brings wealth. There can be no children's playground here, but there must be no death. The Loyahei people were also very depressed. This was their first time to participate in the sea market, and they were the first to try it out among the deep sea people. Anyone could make mistakes in the sea market, but they couldn't. The Loyahei people were not monolithic. There were supporters and opponents. If they didn't perform well in the sea market this time and the trade didn't go smoothly, he could imagine what kind of political attacks they would face when they returned to the tribe. Before the giant long spear entered the ruins, he had agreed with it that it could freely choose a master in the ruins, but could only fight against those in the foundation building stage, and could not hurt anyone's life. If no one could subdue it in 20 years, it would regain its freedom, and by then the Loyahei people would have already established a firm foothold in the sea market. Who would have thought that the giant long spear would actually go out of the ruins in full view of the public, to hunt down a junior who had not yet established his foundation? Shenroi and the others came over and saluted first, with an apologetic look on their faces, and asked about Yang Zhao's well-being. I'm Kang Yao, the Prime Minister of Heishi. I'm here to meet you, Daoist. I'm Ruan from the Loisi clan. I'm here to meet you, Daoist. I'm really sorry. We were inconsiderate and frightened this little Daoist. Shenroi withdrew his hand with a cold expression, lifted Yang Zhao up with his spiritual power, and then hastily performed a formal ceremony with the two people. Wulian Xianzhen, can you two Daoists give way? I have to send my youngster to see a doctor. Kang Yao smiled and didn't care about Shenroi's cold words. Daoist, what are you talking about? Since the little Daoist has a problem in our ruins, the subsequent medical treatment and compensation will naturally be borne by us. Ruin followed behind Kang Yao with a smile. Since it is this giant long spear that caused the trouble, Then this Gianna long spear will be handed over to Daoist for you to deal with. After saying that, he turned around and handed over the Gianna long spear. Shenroi did not extend his hand and snorted coldly, "Don't worry about it, fellow Taoists. It was her shallow cultivation that caused her to be so seriously injured in the ruins. How can she blame this Gianna long spear? It has nothing to do with Heishi." Both of them were smart people. How could they not know that he was speaking in a sarcastic way? Kang Yeo looked concerned. "It is reasonable for fellow Taoists to be angry with us, but I think this little fellow Taoist is seriously injured. I have asked someone to invite the human race's Zinglin Saint to Zenhei Tower. She is a lady asterisk. We can just go there directly so that fellow Taoists don't waste time to invite people and delay the treatment of this little fellow Taoist." These words touched Shenroi's heart. He had just arrived in Heishi and didn't know where to find a female doctor. Although he knew medical skills, men and women should not touch each other. Yang Zhao's ribs were broken, and it was not convenient for him to set her bones. With a female doctor, she felt much better. "Okay, let's follow fellow Taoist Kang's suggestion and go to Zenhei Tower." Yang Zhao was a little anxious when he saw Shenroi was going to take him away. "Senior Kang, when Gianna Longspear was chasing me in the ruins, it once smashed the secret passage inside. There are still people there. I hope you can find someone to take a look." Kang Yeo's face changed drastically. He waved his hand and a sea creature ran over. Kang Yeo whispered a few words in his ear, and the sea creature turned around and ran away in a hurry. "Thank you, little Taoist friend, for telling us." Shenroi was about to get up again, and Yang Zhao spoke again. "Master, can you wait a while before leaving? I want to wait for a cultivator in the foundation building period here. Now that Gianna Longspear has left the ruins, Senior Sheng Tsuji is expected to come out soon." Yang Zhao asked him to bring the monk out. What will happen to the monk when she leaves? The expressions of the onlookers were all a little curious. "Who are you waiting for? Tell me, I will wait for you, and you can just go and heal your wounds." The voice sounded familiar. Yang Zhao turned around and found that Shenroi's old friend, the old shark, was standing beside her without anyone noticing. Kang Yeo and Ruoan should know this old man, so they greeted him first. "Hello, Senior Kin." The old man surnamed Kin nodded and then moved his eyes to Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao looked at Shenroi first, and he nodded. "Leave it to this old shark. You should treat your injuries first." Yang Zhao took out a dozen gold leaves from his Kyankan bag and handed them to the old man surnamed Kin. "It was a senior in the foundation building period that I met in the ruins. His name is Sheng Tsuji. I asked him to bring one of my elders out of the ruins. This is the hard-earned money we agreed to give him." The old man surnamed Kin gently pressed her hand back. "You got into this trouble in my territory, so I should pay you this silver." Ruoan hurriedly said, "My little Taoist friend was injured by the Gianna Longspear, so this silver should be paid by my Loyahei clan." Yang Zhao shook his head and handed over the gold leaves. "You can do whatever you want with other matters, but not with this one. That's an elder of our clan, so I have to pay for this." Shenroi took the gold leaves and stuffed them into the hands of the old man surnamed Kin. "She's still injured, old shark. Don't waste your time." With that, he turned around and left with Yang Zhao, heading for Zenhei Tower. Kang Yeo and Ruoan hurriedly bowed and said goodbye to the old man surnamed Kin, and hurriedly followed him. The onlookers nearby made way for them and whispered to each other after they left. "I didn't expect such a big thing to happen in Hay City this time." "Who said it wasn't? I just saw a large number of sea people entering the ruins, and they should be searching for seriously injured or dead monks. So when someone was injured before, we didn't pay much attention to it. Now think about it, it might be the Gianna Longspear that injured those people. It's possible." Not long after Yang Zhao and the others left, Luo Yihei clan sacrificed a shield, and the big shield turned into a big turtle that slowly swam in the water. "Everyone, the Gianna Longspear that our tribe put into the ruins had a problem. It was the fault of our Loyahei tribe. This Zangliuden is a compensation and will be put back into the ruins. This Zangliuden is of higher quality than the Gianna Longspear and has a milder temper. It swam 2 circles and then threw itself into the ruins. The crowd watching the excitement below started to discuss again. The Loyalhe tribe is really generous. Humph, what else can they do if they are not generous? Our ruins have not had any problems for 70 or 80 years. As soon as they came, they ruined our reputation. You'd better stop talking about this and don't cause trouble for yourself. It's a good thing for the Loyalhe tribe to come here to participate in the sea market, but the Gianna long spear was not chosen well, so something went wrong. That's right, it's inevitable that there will be mistakes when you come here for the first time. I don't know how my little nephew is doing. If he has any problems, I will never let it go. Yang Zhao here was unaware of the subsequent developments. She was taken to Zhenhe Tower by Shen Ruoyu, and Kang Yao booked a room on the upper floor for them. As soon as they entered the room, they saw 3 people standing in the room, 2 women and 1 man. One of the women looked older and had a faint smell of medicine on her body. She should be the acupuncture master. The other woman looked younger and carried a large medicine box on her back. Shenroi put Yang Zhao gang on the bed and politely exchanged greetings with the older acupuncture master. Wulian Xianzhen, please come over. I will leave the child to you, madam. The older woman looked serious and polite. I don't deserve it. Saving people is my duty. Let me take a look at this young friend's injuries first. She walked up to Yang Zhao, took out a small magic weapon, and threw it into the air. The magic weapon floated above Yang Zhao's head and slowly drifted to the end of the bed. Her sternum was fractured in 3 places, but luckily it didn't pierce her internal organs. Her legs and arms were also fractured. The injuries were not serious, but now there is a problem. Shenroi looked a little nervous. Madam, what's the trouble? The older lady frowned and stared at the magic weapon. Although the injuries are not serious, she took the medicine produced by the sunfish before her bones were straightened. The medicine is very effective. Now many bones are healing. If you want to treat her, you have to break her bones again before you can straighten them. This means that Yang Zhao will suffer more. Yang Zhao explained to Shenroi shyly. At that time, the Gianna long spear was chasing me. If I hadn't taken the medicine in advance, I wouldn't have been able to escape. It's not your fault. In that situation, it is naturally important to save your life. What's the big deal about breaking a few bones? Shenroi comforted her and turned to the older female doctor politely. Madam, I'm sorry to bother you with this child's injury. The older woman nodded and asked all the men in the room to leave. I'm going to take off her clothes later. It's not appropriate for you to stand here. They left the room, and the female doctor came to the bed and said to Yang Zhao, good boy, take a nap first. When you wake up, your bones will be healed. After that, she made a seal with both hands and pointed a finger at Yang Zhao's forehead. Yang Zhao fell asleep all of a sudden. When she woke up, she was lying on the bed. The little girl carrying the medicine box was watching beside her. Seeing her wake up, she clapped her hands happily. You're awake. I'll go and ask the master to come in and take another look at you. She said that and excitedly opened the door and went out. After a while, the female doctor entered the room. Yang Zhao lay on the bed and saluted the female doctor. Sorry to bother you, madam. Please excuse me for not being able to get up. I'm a doctor. This is what I should do. I've examined you just now. You've recovered well. Do you feel any discomfort? Yang Zhao pointed to her ears and said, my ears hurt a little. Her ears hurt a lot, but at first her whole body hurt, so she couldn't take care of her ears. The female doctor said, your ears were electrocuted. The injury is not serious. You will be fine after taking some pills for 2 days. Yang Zhao clicked her fingers awkwardly. She injured her ears with lightning, so it was a misunderstanding to say anything. The female doctor saw that she looked wrong and thought she was worried about her injuries. Your cultivation is not high, so you can only stay in bed for 2 days. I prescribed 2 kinds of pills for you. You must take them on time. You will be fine after a while. She took out 2 kinds of pills and showed them to Yang Zhao and put them on her bedside. Both medicines should be taken with hot wine. Just take 2 pills a day. After taking them for about 10 days, you will definitely be full of energy and stronger than before. She hadn't heard this kind of coaxing tone for a long time. Thank you, ma'am. May I know how much the consultation fee is? She knew that Shenryu only had 2 taels of silver besides the 2 silver snails, and she couldn't afford the consultation fee at all. The consultation fee is naturally paid by the Luoyahei clan. You don't have to think too much. Eat more good food, and take good care of yourself. By the way, when I was treating your injuries, I found this little thing on your clothes. The female doctor took out a stone jar, opened it and showed it to Yang Zhao. Inside was the little octopus. It was holding a small fish in the jar and chewing it with relish. Yang Zhao thought it had died in the ruins, but he didn't expect that the little thing actually came out alive with him. Thank you, ma'am. I thought it was dead. The female doctor put the stone jar on a table in the distance. These little things are very smart. They have 9 brains and are very good at escaping. Let me, your disciple, take care of you here for 2 days. You should rest well. After that, she opened the door and went out, leaving only the little girl in the room. Asterisk, madam, it comes from Leah madam in the Book of Songs. Kang Yingda's commentary. Madam refers to a woman with the conduct of a scholar is a metaphor for a woman who has the deeds and talents of a man. That is, a respectful title for knowledgeable and well-educated women. It was blocked, and still cannot be solved. I rewrote it. I found out, while scanning the text these 2 days, that if my novel is a cake, then there is something wrong with the angle from which I cut the cake. It should be more than 10 years after Yang Zhao came here, or it should be cut from the perspective of Shenryu. Novels written from these 2 perspectives will be more refreshing. Chapter 107, Bringing Back the Skeleton. After a while, Shenryu also came in from outside. The little girl bowed politely and went out of the room very tactfully. Shenryu walked to the bedside and put her hand on Yang Zhao's wrist. After a while, she nodded with satisfaction. That lady's medical skills are good. You have been in a coma for a day. Do you still feel pain now? Yang Zhao, not really. I wonder if Senior Sheng Tsuji has come out? Shenryu pulled a stool and sat over. It's estimated that we have to wait for a while. The Luoyahei tribe has put another Kangliu shield in the ruins. I heard that the quality is better than the Jiana long spear, and the temperament is gentle. I guess those of them in the foundation establishment stage are competing for Kangliu shield. Yang Zhao was a little disappointed, but he also understood their choice. Shenryu, I still don't know who the elder who was brought out is you mentioned. Yang Zhao, it was a great monk from the northern Wei dynasty. I don't know when he died in the ruins. If it weren't for the help of this great monk this time, I would not have escaped the pursuit of the Jiana long spear. Shenryu frowned. Monk? Does he have any unfinished wishes? Otherwise he would have been reincarnated long ago. He was carrying a Buddhist treasure and wanted to send it back to the monk, so he has been stranded in the world and has not been reincarnated. Shenryu sighed and said, there should be many such cases. If you encounter them again in the future, it is important to protect yourself. Yang Zhao, Grandmaster, is this situation very common? Shenryu looked a little bitter. Not a few. In the future, in addition to meeting Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, you may also meet the alchemists and wizards of the Pre-Qin dynasty, the sacrifices and warriors of the Xia and Shang dynasties, etc. These people should exist in all walks of life, but after so many years, there should be few alive. Yang Zhao asked boldly again, then do we have immortals? Yes. There are gods and immortals. Your master didn't tell you this, did he? Yang Zhao looked embarrassed. In her heart, gods and immortals only existed in temples, in movies and TV shows, and in literary works. They could never appear in the real world. She had a firm view of the world and firmly believed that there were no gods or ghosts in this world. But now that Shenryu is a ghost and the monk is a ghost, there must be gods. However, in order to protect her own view of the world, she was reluctant to think about it. Is there a heavenly palace? Shenryu's eyes became even more disappointed. Yes. Yang Zhao was a little excited. Grandmaster, you may not know that we can now fly into the sky without magic, but we haven't found any heavenly palace at all. Shenryu frowned when he heard this. Impossible. The heavenly palace can be seen every day, and mortals can see it with their eyes. You can fly to the sky now. How could you not find it? It really hasn't. Could it be that the heavenly palace fell because there are no gods? Shenryu said seriously, have you never seen Tebe Venus? What kind of change can make the heavenly palace on Tebe Venus fall? Venus, Venus. Yang Zhao's mind was blank, and then he began to desperately recall the basic information of Venus. He found that, if the Heavenly Palace really exists, it is most likely to be on Venus. Venus rotates for more than 240 days, and its autobiography period is longer than its revolution period. Even compared with the Earth, it is true that one day in the sky is 1 year underground. Although Venus has high temperature and pressure on the ground, it is a habitable area a few thousand meters in the sky. Except for the lack of oxygen, the temperature and pressure are fine. Yang Zhao felt dry in the mouth. Grandmaster, do you think there are still gods in the Heavenly Palace? I guess they are gone a long time ago. Even if there are, they are just struggling to survive. Shenroi obviously didn't want to say more about these issues, so Yang Zhao didn't ask in detail and naturally changed the subject. Seeing Shenroi's depressed expression, she asked carefully, Grandmaster, do you want to return to your roots? Shenroi had a faint smile on her face. I have to guard Yunnan Temple, how can I go back as I wish? Okay, let's not talk about this. I have something to go out for, you have a good rest. Yang Zhao watched the Grandmaster go out, tossing and turning in bed with a belly full of shock. She lay in bed for a few days, and she was able to get up and go out, so the little girl went back. That day, Shenroi brought the person in charge of Hay City and the people of Luoya Hay clan to see her to discuss compensation with her. This time, it was Kang Yao, the person in charge of Hay City, and Ruin of Luoya Hay clan who came. Shenroi spoke first. I have discussed with them these days. Hey, she will compensate you with a high-level water repellent bead. The intention of the Loyalhai tribe is to force the Gianna Long Spear to recognize you as its master. Now it depends on what you think. Yang Zhao was a little curious, but I have a water repellent bead. Kang Yao smiled slightly and took out the water repellent bead. The bead was large and round, emitting a faint light. Most of the water repellent beads sold on the market are defective products. Generally, they can only be used for dozens of days after activation. The one we compensated is really a good treasure. With it, you can enter the water at will in the future without time restrictions. Shenroi sneered slightly. Hey, she means that they will publicize this compensation, so that everyone knows their sincerity. Of course, the Loyalhai tribe compensates you with a Gianna Long Spear for the same reason. Now it depends on whether you want to make a splash. In other words, although they are sincere, what is more important is that they want to pay a lot of money to buy a horse bone and try their best to offset the bad influence that the Gianna Long Spear's madness has brought to Heishi and the Loyalhai tribe. Yang Zhao thought about it and nodded slightly. He got the benefit of this matter. Although he would publicize it, it was just a name. Not many people could match the name with the face. I can accept this water repellent bead, but the Gianna Long Spear always wants to kill me. You ask me to accept it, but I'm a little afraid. What if he turns the spearhead against me? Ruin laughed and didn't care. No matter what, the Gianna Long Spear is a weapon. Weapons naturally have to obey the will of the master. As for how to let you subdue it, it is our concern. You just need to show up at that time. Yang Zhao gritted her teeth and saw that Shenroi also agreed, so she agreed. This Gianna Long Spear is indeed powerful, otherwise it would not be fought over by so many foundation building cultivators. Ruin looked delighted. Hahaha, thank you for your cooperation, little Taoist friend. When you can move freely, we will let the Gianna Long Spear recognize you as its master. Shenroi interrupted at this time. The Gianna Long Spear must recognize its master according to the method I told you a few days ago. But, according to the method of Taoist friend Shen, little Taoist friend Yang Zhao will encounter great troubles. It is even a question whether the master recognition ceremony can be carried out smoothly in the end. Ruin looked puzzled and frowned slightly. Don't worry, since I have proposed that method, I'm sure that Yang Zhao can survive it. Although Ruin was puzzled, he did not ask more questions. He asked this question only because he was afraid that things would not go well that day, not because of his concern for Yang Zhao. Even if Shenroi's method did not allow the Gianna Long Spear to recognize Yang Zhao as its master smoothly, they could still change to their own method. It was just that they had to prepare more things. It was no big deal. Since everything had been discussed, Kang Yao left the water repelling bead on the spot with Yang Zhao. After a few polite words, the two said goodbye and left. Shenroi walked 2 steps outside, then turned back to find Yang Zhao. The conversation between Shenroi and Ruoan just now was so confusing that Yang Zhao was confused. Master, is the way you said to recognize the master difficult? Shenroi, it's difficult, but the benefits are the greatest. It turned out that the Loisi clan originally wanted to erase the consciousness of the Jiana long spear, so that Yang Zhao would naturally be able to subdue it easily. But Shenroi did not agree with this method. The preciousness of this spear lies in the fact that there is a complete Jiana long soul in it, and the spine and soul come from the same Jiana long, and it is conscious. Once the consciousness is gone, the power of this Jiana long spear will be reduced by more than half, and its value will be incomparable. Shenroi wants to lead the Jiana long soul into Yang Zhao's soul land and subdue the Jiana long in her main battlefield. And Fang Shili is trapped there. As long as Yang Zhao can endure hardships and is not afraid of pain, then this hidden danger can be solved this time. You are protected by incense, and there is a trace of Sun Wukong's power in the soul land, which can guarantee your life, but you will suffer more. Yang Zhao felt a toothache, but after weighing the pros and cons, he agreed to this plan. If you want to get more benefits, you must pay more. After a few days, Yang Zhao was able to move freely. After she finished her training, she went to the outside of the ruins to put up a big sign with Sheng Tsuji's name on it, waiting for him to come out. According to the rumors of the monks who came out, although the Zhangliuden has a gentle temperament, its defense is too high. So many foundation building monks attacked it for several days without any movement. Many foundation building monks were discouraged and estimated that it would come out of the ruins in the next few days. After Yang Zhao was able to move, she came every day. The old shark surnamed Qin returned the gold leaf to her and accompanied her here every day. Senior, I'm almost well now, you don't have to accompany me every day. Alas, I don't want to either, but your story has been spreading like wildfire these days. Your master is afraid that you will be in danger, and he is busy setting up the formation, and has no time, so he threatened me to come here to deter the villains. What can I do? The old shark surnamed Qin found a place to sit cross-legged, with an innocent look on his face. Although the news was spreading like wildfire, as Yang Zhao had expected before, the name and the face did not match, but Shenroi was a little worried. Yang Zhao gave him a portion of the seafood snacks in his arms, and stuffed a small shrimp into the stone jar on his waist, and then stood aside and ate it. Now this little octopus is greedy when she sees others eating, and she will bring it a portion when she buys food. The old shark surnamed Qin looked at the jar and asked curiously, "Why do you keep this little thing? It will never grow up, you can't even ride it to travel. Its meat is not tasty, and its cultivation is much slower than yours. What is there to pay attention to?" Yang Zhao swallowed the food in his mouth and said, "It looks good. I must buy some special things when I come here, otherwise I feel that I have come here for nothing. Your idea is strange, and it is completely different from your master." Yang Zhao smiled and said, "Senior, what you said is wrong. We are hundreds of years apart, so of course we are different." At this time, several people flew out from the big black scar at the entrance of the ruins. She looked at one of the figures and felt familiar. It seemed to be Sheng Tsuji. Yang Zhao raised the big sign, swayed it and shouted loudly, Senior Sheng, this way." The people on both sides looked at her in surprise. They probably didn't expect that she would suddenly speak so loudly. The figure in front of the entrance of the ruins turned a little circle and flew towards Yang Zhao. It was Sheng Tsuji. Sheng Tsuji looked at the sign and felt a little shy. Dao, please put down this sign." Yang Zhao put down the sign obediently and saluted happily. Sheng Tsuji greeted the old shark named Qin first, and then returned the greeting to Yang Zhao. "Dao, the matter you entrusted to me has some twists and turns. Can you find a quiet place to talk about it in detail?" Yang Zhao's face was a little bad, and he led him back to Zhenhe Tower. The old shark went to find Shenroi in advance, and only she and Sheng Tsuji were left in the room. Sheng Tsuji took out a big bag from his Kyankan bag and gently placed it on the table. "Here are the bones of your elder. When the Jiana long spear broke free from his spell, he also shattered, and his soul could not be found. I searched carefully and found that all the bones were gathered together, but he was missing a pair of hand bones. The pair of hand bones turned into a mountain and suppressed the Gianna long spear. Once the Gianna long spear was freed, the hand bones turned into ashes and scattered with the seawater, and no trace could be found. He opened a corner of the big bag and could see the scattered bones inside, which were still emitting a faint golden light, but they were all spread out in the bag, scattered and messy. Yang Zhao's nose was sore and her eyes were a little hot. She didn't know the Buddhist name of this monk yet, and she wouldn't know it in the future. When she sent him back, what would be written on the inscription? She took 2 deep breaths, took out the gold leaves from her arms, and handed them to Sheng Tsuji. Here are the remaining gold leaves, please keep them. Sheng Tsuji took out 8 gold leaves from the bag, and pushed the rest back to Yang Zhao. I didn't handle this matter perfectly, these are enough. Yang Zhao pushed the gold leaves back again. How can this be done? The amount of silver is what we said at the beginning. You don't have to be polite with me, we can just do business. There's nothing else to do now, I'm leaving, see you next time. Sheng Tsuji shook his head and walked out without looking back. Yang Zhao gang walked out for 2 steps and came back to look at the bag of bones quietly. At first, she was very afraid to see these skeletons, but now she was in the same room with these skeletons, and she felt peaceful and quiet, and not afraid at all. She cried for a while, and then sat there motionless. She didn't feel like she had been sitting there for a while, and Shenroi knocked on the door and came in. He must have heard about this from the old shark named Qin, and hurried back. He saw the bag of bones on the table at a glance, and he bowed properly. I'm Shenroi, the Taoist priest, and I'm honored to meet you, the Buddhist seniors. The bones stayed quietly in the bag. Chapter 108, Fight Here. Yang Zhao's face lit up, thinking that Shenroi had found the remnant of the monk's soul on these bones. Did the master's soul not dissipate? It has dissipated. Only a little bit of consciousness resides in the skull, maintaining the contract with you. Once the contract is completed, this little bit of consciousness will also dissipate. Yang Zhao subconsciously looked at her wrist, and indeed the red line was still there. It was because of this red line that she always thought that the monk was fine. Now it seems that she was too optimistic. Please put this skeleton in my room. It's not appropriate for you, a girl, to put it in your room. It's okay to cry about this kind of thing, but be restrained, and don't be too upset. Yang Zhao embarrassedly covered her head and swollen eyes. Grandmaster, I know. Shenroi tied up the big bag and walked out of the room with the big bag of bones. Yang Zhao was in a low mood and began to fiddle with her mobile phone. She hadn't used this phone for 3 months before it broke again. The screen was completely shattered, the body was bent, and it was out of power. The power bank connected to the phone was smashed to pieces. Looking at such a pile of garbage, Yang Zhao wrote a note. The content was to send her 2 mobile phones and 4 power banks, and then extract the videos from her old phone. After thinking for a while, she finally wrote another sentence. The heavenly palace may be on Venus. She packed the mobile phone, power bank and note, put them under the Taoist card, and chanted a spell. The sky and the earth are boundless, and the universe is changing. The package was gone. In fact, she should have sent it back long ago, but she always felt lazy and couldn't get excited about doing anything, so this matter has been delayed until now. 2 hours later, Yang Zhao kept time and chanted a spell. The sky and the earth are boundless, and the universe is changing. After waiting for more than an hour, 2 mobile phones and 4 solar power banks appeared on the Taoist card. This phone looks stronger than the previous one, and the phone case and tempered film are all available. Moreover, the battery is full. Various apps have been downloaded for her, and the account has been logged in. Even the video in the broken phone was extracted and sent to these 2 phones. Her app account and password are not a secret. She knew this a long time ago. Yang Zhao opened the video and found that the picture inside was not so dim. Because the monks exploring in the ruins all had large light balls of Zhaoming magic, and people's faces could be seen clearly, especially when fighting with the skeleton group in the corridor. The darkness in the distance and the light nearby appeared even more terrifying in the video. This thing is 18 plus, and it should not be allowed to be broadcast on the internet platform. Yang Zhao reluctantly cut most of it, leaving more figures of the dragon spear. The magic light they used to fight was very beautiful, and it looked like fireworks next to the dragon in the video. In the last scene, she froze the picture of the dragon rushing down. The fierceness and cruelty in the dragon's eyes were clearly visible, which made people's backs cold. She posted the edited video online, and the comment area was as lively as ever. The blogger is completely done with this. He hasn't updated for more than 10 days. Wow, big octopus and big octopus legs. Are all seafood so fresh? I'm hungry after watching this. I'll have octopus balls for dinner. I can't do that. I want to eat spicy fried octopus legs. I really envy you upstairs. We are located inland, and seafood is really expensive. Okay, I'm increasingly doubting that this is a real world. Although it doesn't look real, with current science and technology, special effects shouldn't be able to do this. It's too late for you to doubt. Someone has already started to doubt and investigate. The people above are liars, fooling people. Download the anti-fraud app. I believe the blogger is really cultivating immortals. Blogger, can I recognize you as my master and follow you to cultivate immortals? Another person who has been fooled by the blogger, blame me. This time the fans have increased to 280,000 or 290,000. Yang Zhao hid in the quilt and could see that the incense on the Taoist tablet had increased a little. It seems that more and more people trust her. After she subdues the Giant Long Spear, she will start to practice incense and build a divine body. If she practices now, she is afraid that the incense will not be enough to protect her soul and delay the subjugation of the Giant Long Spear. In this way, after waiting for another 2 days, Yang Zhao was already alive and kicking. Shenroi informed her to go to the Loyhe tribe to subdue the Giant Long Spear tomorrow. Let her take a pill of the soul first, in case of emergency tomorrow. There are only 10 pills in this small bottle. He takes 1 or 2 pills every time, and now there are 5 or 6 left in the small bottle. The next morning, the Loyhe tribe sent someone to pick them up. The Loyhe tribe was stationed on the edge of Heishi, some distance away from other camps, and not close to Zenhei Tower. When they arrived, Ruin was waiting for them at the entrance of the camp, and led them into the camp. There were many people standing there, and there were 2 formations on the ground. The Giant Long Spear was placed on a shelf next to the formation, with a black iron ring on it. When it saw Yang Zhao coming in, the entire gun body trembled slightly. Ruin looked at Yang Zhao seriously and asked, "You must think carefully this time. It is risky to let this dragon soul enter your soul land. Are you sure you are ready?" Yang Zhao looked at the dragon spear and nodded seriously. "Don't worry, senior, I'm mentally prepared." He pointed to a relatively large formation and asked her to stand in the middle of the formation. Yang Zhao walked in obediently. The dragon spear was also taken off the shelf. 2 metal talismans were attached to it and placed next to her. Ruin reminded her outside the formation. "Little Taoist friend, don't mind the dirtiness. Sit down or lie down in the formation to avoid falling when you enter the soul land later." Yang Zhao wanted to sit down, but after thinking about it, she took out a piece of clothing from the Kyankan bag and put it under her head. She must welcome this soul battle with the dragon spear in the most comfortable way. Attention, we are activating the formation. The formation on the ground glowed faintly, and Yang Zhao had already arrived at the soul land. A huge roar resounded throughout the soul land. "Yang Zhao, I must eat you today." This was the voice of the dragon's soul. He swung his tail and bit Yang Zhao. Although she still had a fear of the dragon spear in her heart, the soul land was her home ground, and Fang Shila's repeated defeats gave her great confidence. Thunder. A bolt of lightning struck the dragon's body, and the lightning traveled across the dragon's body, causing it to freeze and almost fall down. But in a moment, he immediately recovered and continued to open his mouth wide towards Yang Zhao, wanting to eat her. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109, Entering the Land of Souls. Fang Shili was startled by the huge roar in the soul land, and then she saw a dragon attacking Yang Zhao. He looked delighted, and the branches on his body grew rapidly, trying to sneak attack Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao had been on guard against her for a long time and shouted repeatedly, "Thunder! Thunder! Thunder! Thunder!" Lightning is the fastest, and she can even connect it seamlessly in the Soul Land. But now there is an additional dragon soul. Yang Zhao really feels the effort. She took advantage of the time when the two non-human souls were stiff and ran behind Fang Shili. Her Soul Land is not very large, and the dragon's body is relatively large. Yang Zhao hid behind Fang Shili. When the dragon rushed towards her, while enduring the attack of lightning, it was inevitable to touch Fang Shili. Thunder! Thunder! Because it was in Yang Zhao's Soul Land, the dragon's magic could not be performed, and it could only bite people with its mouth and slap people with its tail. It dragged the lightning all over its body and swept down with its tail. Yang Zhao was right behind Fang Shili, and the tail not only swept her away, but also swept Fang Shili away. Fang Shili was furious and couldn't help shouting, "Fellow Daoist, I'm also an enemy of Yang Zhao. We can join forces to kill her." Jian Along, a person who changed to the way of demon cultivation halfway, who is your Taoist friend. Do I need to join forces with you? If no one stopped in the ruins, Jian Along's spear could have slaughtered Yang Zhao, even if it was in the Soul Land of Yang Zhao. In Jian Along's spear's heart, the impression of her weak strength was deeply rooted, and no one could refute it. Now someone actually wanted to join forces with him to deal with Yang Zhao, which was a mockery to Jian Along's spear in his heart. On the other side, Yang Zhao was in pain all over after being thrown down, and his eyes were black, but he didn't dare to stop talking. Fire! Fire! Thunder! Thunder! Seeing Fang Shili's branches coming, she shouted, "Big wind! Cut off the branches!" Yang Zhao quickly got up and ran behind Fang Shili again, waiting for the dragon to rush down with fire and electricity, and accidentally injured Fang Shili with his tail. Fang Shili suppressed his temper and begged for cooperation again. "Dao, this Yang Zhao is cunning and insidious. Now he is trying to sow discord between you and me. Let's join forces to kill the enemy." Unfortunately, the dragon spear was too lazy to pay attention to him this time. Without saying a word, he was ready to kill Yang Zhao with lightning and fire. Yang Zhao did not hide anywhere else, but stared at Fang Shili's figure, so that he was always between himself and the dragon, and the fight between the two sides would affect him. The dragon did not care about Fang Shili at all. Its huge body rolled up and down in the Soul Land, and it would always hit Fang Shili. Once or twice is okay, and he can tolerate 3 or 4 times, but he can't stand it anymore, and finally beat Yang Zhao and the dragon together. This became a big fight between the three of them. At present, it seems that Fang Shili always stands in the middle and suffers the most damage. He also thought about retreating and letting Yang Zhao go, but every time he made a move, Yang Zhao would summon lightning and strike him stiffly for a while, and soon Yang Zhao would leave him in the middle again. In such a narrow place, Yang Zhao actually had a great advantage in the three-way battle. The dragon's body was too big to stretch out, and Fang Shili would always be implicated. But this advantage could not prevent Yang Zhao from being beaten like a sandbag and rolling around. Even though she was dizzy and in great pain, she would not allow herself to lie on the ground. Gradually, she found that the dragon was actually more afraid of fire, and the damage of fire seemed to be much higher than that of lightning. Fire, fire, thunder. The three parties entered a war of attrition, and Yang Zhao gritted his teeth and held on with willpower and home advantage. The dragon, with its strong soul power, was the strongest among the three parties and chased the other two parties. The most uncomfortable one was Fang Shili. He had no place to replenish his soul power. He couldn't beat Jian Along or Yang Zhao. Now he was the weakest among the three parties and was designed by Yang Zhao to be caught in the middle. Sure enough, after a period of time, Fang Shili couldn't hold on. His bark began to crack and fall off, the branches grew slower and slower, and the green light on his body became dimmer and dimmer. He couldn't hold on any longer. Yang Zhao's eyes lit up when he saw this scene. Fang Shili had always been a big worry in her heart. This time, she took this opportunity to finally destroy him. Yang Zhao was afraid that he was acting, so he always hid behind Fang Shili and pushed him between the two parties. After a while, Fang Shili began to completely collapse. The messy branches slowly turned into a faint green light, nourishing Yang Zhao's soul land and her soul. As Fang Shili collapsed, Yang Zhao became more and more energetic and more comfortable. Even Jian Lang found something wrong and began to deliberately avoid Fang Shili. But as I said before, the dragon was too big and he could hit Fang Shili with any move, and he failed to stop his defeat. In the end, Fang Shili sneered. Hey. Hehehe. You brainless beast. Now is the time for you to get yourself into trouble. You idiot. The dragon was so angry that he slapped him with his tail. Chapter 110. Hungry. Fang Shili was knocked to the ground by the dragon's tail. This time he couldn't get up at all. His entire soul began to collapse bit by bit, turning into green fireflies and scattering. Yang Zhao only felt that her body was rapidly filling up, and her thoughts instantly spread to the entire soul land, but a sense of hunger became stronger and stronger. In an instant, the strong and the weak changed. There is no need to go into details about what happened afterwards. She beat the dragon half to death, resisted the desire to eat the dragon's soul, and forced it to sign a contract. When she woke up, she felt a chill on her back. She stood up with the gun and the mud behind her dripped down. Everyone around was amazed. They didn't expect that she would succeed in conquering. Shenroi stood by and pinched the seal with one hand. Clean. Yang Zhao's body was instantly dry. She gently tapped the spear in her hand, and the spear instantly became smaller. She was dented into a bracelet and hung on her wrist. Shenroi saw that she had packed up and said, "Go back." Shenroi took the lead and walked out. Yang Zhao bowed and said goodbye to the people of Luoyuhe clan behind him. The two returned to Zhenhe Tower, where the old shark surnamed Qin was waiting for them. Shenroi waved his hand to let Yang Zhao go out to play, and he got together with the old shark again. Yang Zhao was just trapped by hunger and was anxious to find something to eat, and hurried out of Zhenhe Tower. Here, Shenroi and the old shark surnamed Qin sat by the window. The old shark had deep eyes and looked at Yang Zhao's figure downstairs. "I think this girl is about to break through the foundation building stage. Why did you give this girl a strong drug?" Shenroi turned the silver conch in his hand with boredom. "You also know that, although she has the 9th level of key refining, it is also about refining skin, bones, and soul. I helped her refine the skin. She just refined the soul in Luoyuhe clan. Now there is only one bone refining left, and she can build the foundation in 100 days. Building the foundation in 100 days is the best starting point for cultivation for cultivators." After hearing what he said, old shark looked at Yang Zhao with deep pity in his eyes. "This little girl is unlucky to meet you. She has suffered so much just for the foundation building. However, she was able to endure the skin refining and soul refining without going crazy. It shows that her will is rare in the world. No wonder you can sit down with me and ask for my teeth. She will refine her bones after she goes back. Your teeth are the best medicinal materials. Although my teeth are the best medicinal materials, they also hurt the most. Now all major families are avoiding the 100-day foundation building. Where did you find such a good seedling?" Shenroi was silent for a long time. "It was not me who found it, but my uncle Gongsun. I heard that one of your two uncles Gongsun is missing. Who is so bold as to take advantage of your loophole?" Shenroi gritted his teeth slightly. "Fang Shili, the one who was just eaten by Yang Zhao." The old shark looked playful. "You really hold a grudge. You hold a grudge when you were young, and you still hold a grudge after you died. How did Fang Shili get to the place of Yang Zhao's soul?" Shenroi glanced at him coldly. "Since he dared to eat the Dao tree of my Yunnan temple, he must add a handful of firewood to my Yunnan temple. Ha 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 ha. It's just a pity that this little girl was kept in the dark by you from beginning to end." Shenroi, "At the beginning, I didn't understand her temperament, so I could only force her secretly. These days, I have understood her, and I don't have to hide the cultivation from her in the future. I still don't understand it now. Aren't you afraid that, after eating Fang Shili, she will not be able to resist eating the dragon again? Eating human souls in the soul land is the easiest way to become a demon." Shenroi sneered softly and ignored him. "It's really a bridge." After crossing the river, on the other side, Yang Zhao squatted next to the snack stand and didn't move for a long time. I don't know why. She felt hungry, no matter how much she ate. The hunger was like a ghost claw, scratching her stomach, making her tense and too lazy to talk. Moreover, every time she glanced at the dragon spear on her wrist, she felt hungrier. Seeing a woman like Yang Zhao eating for a long time, the owner of the sea tribe at the stall couldn't stand it anymore. "Hey, customer, are you a human? Is it really okay to eat so much?" He was afraid that Yang Zhao would be hurt and affect his business. Yang Zhao's eyes were red with hunger. Now looking at the sea creature, he could imagine what he would look like after steaming. Even the whole sea city turned into a big steamer in Yang Zhao's eyes, covered with steamed seafood. She secretly despised herself in her heart. "Yang Zhao, why are you so perverted? Although the owner of this stall is a sea creature, he is also an intelligent race. What's the difference between eating it and eating people?" She paid the money quickly and changed to another stall to continue eating. Unfortunately, she soon encountered trouble. Although her brain was burning with hunger, the space in her stomach was not infinite. Soon she was facing a stomach full of vomiting, but she was still driven by hunger to eat. Until the moment she wanted to vomit, Yang Zhao's brain was cold, and she realized her abnormality. The most abnormal thing was that she had not realized before that she was abnormally hungry. Her mind seemed to be shrouded in mist and could not think straight. She was not stupid either. She soon thought of Fang Shili, who died in her soul land and cursed secretly. "This Fang Shili is really vicious. He will cause trouble for me even after his death." Yang Zhao slapped her forehead hard, trying to sober herself up. She found a crab seller, bought a big crab, broke off a leg, and put it in her mouth to taste it. But the feeling of hunger was getting stronger and stronger, and she even had hallucinations, and wanted to take a bite of everything she saw. This didn't work. Yang Zhao found a big fish, and asked him to take her back to Zhenhe Tower. When he returned to Zhenhe Tower, Shenroi and the others were no longer in the building. Yang Zhao entered the house and set several alarms for herself on her mobile phone to remind herself of the time to eat. She recalled her previous appetite and wrote it down clearly on paper. She decided that she could eat 20% more in the future, and she couldn't eat more. She was now very full, but her eyes were dizzy with hunger. She could only lie down on the bed and crawl into the quilt, comforting herself in her heart. "Go to sleep. Go to sleep. When you fall asleep, you won't feel hungry. After eating a full meal, it is indeed easy to feel sleepy." She fell asleep in a short while. Even in her dreams, she was eating. In the end, she was so hungry that she started to eat trees. Chapter 111. Sent back. When Yang Zhao was woken up by the alarm clock, she couldn't help smacking her lips. The tree in her dream was so delicious that she couldn't stop savoring it even after waking up. Now she even wanted to taste the little octopus in the jar. This wouldn't work. The first thing she did when she got up was to find Shenroi and tell him that she was so hungry that she wanted to eat people and wanted to ask if there was any solution. Shenroi didn't seem surprised by the situation. "Fang Shili just died in your soul land. It's normal for you to be hungry, but don't be afraid. You are protected by incense and you won't get seriously ill. Just bear with it." Although the master said it casually, as if it was not a big deal, Yang Zhao always felt that something was wrong, but she was too hungry and didn't want to think about it. She relied on the remaining reason to take the paper list she wrote and went out to buy food. After she bought the food, she left the underwater snack street, holding the food while eating and looking at the fresh items sold on both sides of the stalls, trying to divert her attention. This time she forced herself to chew slowly. Hunger always invaded her brain. Every time she put a bite of food into her mouth, she wanted to swallow it without chewing, but chewing could delay the time it takes to fill the stomach. In fact, chewing slowly was somewhat useful, but diverting the eyes was of little use. Because there were too many sea creatures in the sea, each one looked like a dish to him, and they were full of fragrance and greasy. She had no choice but to go back to Zhenhe Tower to sleep when she finished her food. In her dream, she not only ate the big tree, but also wanted to eat the long worm with horns. However, the big tree could still be savored, but the long worm could not be savored at all. Yang Zhao smacked his lips with some regret, and was a little curious about the taste of the long worm in the dream. She knew that she was not normal now. As a northerner, she never ate snakes, and she had no interest in eating snakes before. Her fear of snakes was ingrained in her bones. A day or two passed like this. Although the sea market was not over yet, Yang Zhao and Shenroi also packed up their things and left the sea market. When they returned, they first took the cornerstone, arrived on the island, and then took a boat back to Huanglang port. Before she left, she bought crabs to eat on the way to the boat, and also bought some not too expensive local specialties, which were gifts for her friends when she returned. After returning to Huanglang port, Yang Zhao first sent the corpse of the monk and the Buddhist treasure back to Chix and Shenzhou, and told them what the monk meant. They attached great importance to these things, and found a temple overnight, and called their abbot to hold a meeting. After a few days, Yang Zhao felt a little itchy on her wrist. The red line that she signed the contract with the monk had broken, and the color became lighter and finally disappeared. Yang Zhao's hungry brain actually felt a sense of loss. Although the monk saved her life, he was ultimately a passerby in her life. Originally, after returning from Heishi, she should visit Miss Ruojian, shopkeeper Ong, and Miss Xiao, but because she was hungry, she didn't want to go anywhere. She now does 3 things a day: eating, sleeping, and practicing. In this way, she got better after 7 or 8 days. This better means that she doesn't want to eat people now. When she sees people for the first time, she won't think about steaming or braising them. Yang Zhao is very happy. This shows that I'm not a pervert. This time, she packed up the local specialty she bought in Heishi and went to Shandafang first to give the gifts to shopkeeper Ang. The two had a good chat. Shopkeeper Ang's shop is a weapons workshop. He saw at a glance that the Jiana long spear on Yang Zhao's wrist is not an ordinary item. The second place she went to was Miss Xiao's Kame Hall. The little girl was very surprised when she received the gift. "Thank you so much, Sister Yang Zhao. This time, Auntie in Heishi said she would not let me go no matter what. Fortunately, you thought of me. Auntie is worried about your safety. When you grow up a little bit, your family will be willing to let you go." The last place she went to was naturally the Liu mansion. The eldest master of the Liu family had packed up his things and returned to take up his post. Miss Ruojian received her. Originally, she wanted to meet Liu Zengshi to see if he recognized the Jiana long spear in her hand. Yang Zhao took out the extra gold leaves left after buying the conches and wanted to return them to Miss Ruojian. "Sir, you helped me a lot by buying those conches. I said at the beginning that the extra gold leaves are your hard-earned money. It's just a few gold leaves. Sir, you don't have to be polite." Miss Ruojian smiled brightly and seemed really satisfied with the conches. After a few pleasantries, Yang Zhao returned to the small courtyard where he lived. Shenroi was sitting in the courtyard waiting for her. When she saw her come back, she pointed to the prescription on the table. "Go to Kame Hall to buy the medicine on this list. As before, ask the second brothers to boil the medicine and send it to you." She pointed to the huge tooth next to the prescription. "Are you asking the second brother to cut this tooth open and boil it with the other herbs?" Yang Zhao picked up the thing and looked at it, but she couldn't understand it. "Are these also for bathing?" "This is a prescription for strengthening bones. You have to eat it." Chapter 112. It hurts again. Yang Zhao looked at the things on the table and asked timidly, "Are there any side effects of drinking this medicine?" Shenroi glanced at her and said, "This medicine strengthens bones. It just hurts. It hurts." Yang Zhao grinned, as if the medicine list given by the master had relatively serious side effects. She went out to deal with this matter and began to practice again. This time, she added incense to build a divine body on the basis of her previous practice. During this process, Yang Zhao saw for the first time what incense looked like. It was a very strange colored mist with a large area of gold entangled with red and black and other colors. It looked solemn and dangerous. Is it really okay to use this thing to build a divine body? Although she had doubts in her heart, Yang Zhao still practiced step by step honestly. This process is more like a kind of weaving those mists together thread by thread, requiring her to be meticulous and cautious, and it is a very patient job. This is a big test for Yang Zhao, because she has to endure the hunger that scratches her heart and lungs while weaving patiently. This doesn't seem like a job that a person can do. She suppressed her temper and weaved slowly. Because Shenroi said that the bone strengthening medicine would be very painful, Yang Zhao habitually drank it before going to bed. At first, she didn't feel anything and thought that Shenroi wanted to scare her. After drinking the medicine, she lay on the bed and fell asleep. But who knew that she didn't know how long she slept, and waves of pain swept and spread, waking her up. It turned out that the medicine was only starting to take effect now. She curled up on the bed, and the pain was getting more and more turbulent like waves, as if all the bones in her body were broken by a hammer. Ha ha. Yang Zhao shivered all over, cold sweats broke out, and she couldn't help but breathe heavily, trying to relieve the pain. But it was useless, and even because of the heavy breathing, the pain in her sternum and throat was aggravated. Even her teeth hurt. She didn't dare to bite the quilt, and there was no moment that she wanted to faint as much as she did now. Maybe the skull is closer to the brain, and the feedback of pain will be faster. In the end, all the pain was concentrated on her entire skull, and the rest of the body was numb. Yang Zhao was dizzy and wondered if she had committed a serious crime, that she had to suffer such torture. She didn't break free from the bone-breaking torture until the surroundings were silent. Although she was soaking wet, she didn't want to do anything. She finally dug out a sleeping spell from her brain, endured the hunger that was gradually emerging, and cast it on herself. She still had to practice tomorrow, and she couldn't do it without sleep. After this time, she moved the time to drink the medicine forward by half a day, so that after the pain was over, she would have time to take a shower and go to bed. These days, the two of them found a wide and deserted place on the beach to practice the dragon spear. The dragon spear was longer and heavier than the long spear she used for training in the past. She couldn't swing it now, so she could only force the dragon spear to reduce most of its weight so that she could adapt more easily. Shenroi watched her finish her trick and began to make new demands on her. Now the Jiana Long spear is higher than your cultivation. You should learn to release the Jiana Long soul during the battle so that it can transform into a Jiana Long to join the battle. This is a kind of cooperation, a cooperation that is centered on you. If you want to make good use of it, you can't be lazy. You can't rely on it too much, but you can't abandon it. You have to grasp the degree. Yang Zhao scratched her head. She didn't know if it was because of hunger that her intelligence was greatly reduced. Shenroi's words were a bit vague. She didn't know how to do it specifically. Grandmaster, can you explain it more clearly? Shenroi shook her head. This thing is supposed to be figured out by yourself step by step. No matter how much outsiders say it is wrong for you. Then Yang Zhao and the Jiana Long spear began a messy trial and error process. For example, Yang Zhao wanted the Jiana Long spear to move forward, but she couldn't catch up. For example, she wanted the Jiana Long to take her into the air, but she fell down. Another example was that she wanted the Jiana Long spear to rush forward and return to her hand, but the Jiana Long used too much power and plunged into the sea. They made all kinds of mistakes throughout the day. When she watched the video shot by Shenroi, she found that it looked more like a funny video. It was a funny video, so Yang Zhao transferred the video to her mobile phone via Bluetooth. After returning home, she sorted it out and posted it online. These days, people always complained that she didn't update in time. Gangren said that she was playing Begin Disguise and looked at her in a daze. Even though she edited out most of the scenes of the skeleton group in the last video, it still scared the netizens below. WC, what is this? I was so scared that I dropped my phone. Is the blogger going to enter the supernatural genre? So scary. No, no, no. The last dragon is the scariest. Okay. What is scary? That dragon is so handsome. Master Yang Zhao, please accept me as your apprentice. As long as you let me take a look at the dragon, just tell me how much it costs. Oh, is there a rich man upstairs? Does a rich man need a thigh pendant? Am I the only one who found that the blogger's video has been restricted? You are not the first one. We old fans have known it for a long time. Yang Zhao looked at the comment that wanted to see the dragon and pondered for a while. Although she was not short of money now, when she needed money in the future, it should be a good business to invite people from the network to come and see the wonders. She counted the spells she knew on her fingers and found that as long as she practiced the incense and fire to build a divine body to a certain stage, she could start this business. Yang Zhao ran to Shenroi to ask her if this plan could go on. Today is the only update. Can I use the time method? In a blink of an eye, a year will pass like this? This way, the tourists can come here faster. I can't make up my mind, so I want to ask for your opinions. If you agree, I will adjust the outline and overhaul the manuscript. This is how newcomers are. I have no confidence in anything. I need your feedback to know how to do it. In addition, should I change the introduction? Chapter 113. Further, Shenroi listened to Yang Zhao's plan silently and thought for a while. You want to use your divine body to summon believers, but you can't summon them here. It's too far. You have to go to the land of clan souls to summon them. After summoning them, send them into the fairy beans, and they will have entities here. Yang Zhao nodded. How can they become my believers? Shenroi turned the silver conch in her hand. Those who sincerely believe in you are your believers. When can I enter the land of souls on my own? The foundation building period will be fine. Yang Zhao was a little discouraged after hearing this. She had just practiced for less than 3 months, and she didn't know when she would be able to build a foundation. Shenroi saw her thoughts at a glance. You are going for 100 days to build a foundation, and there is only one bone refining left. You can build a foundation in a few days. Is it so easy? Yang Zhao felt a little mysterious. Not only did he secretly think to himself, I still don't know much about cultivation. I need to learn more and ask for advice in the future. Shenroi thought of something else. If you want to get this done, you have to go to the local government office. Why? This kind of thing involves people from another world. It is normal for the government office to pay attention to it, but this world is a place with 4 connections, and the management of this aspect was not strict a few hundred years ago. You can go and ask what the current rules are, so as to avoid being troubled by the government office. Yang Zhao nodded, thinking about going to the government office one day. She asked Shenroi many questions about cultivation, and the other party patiently answered her doubts until she was too hungry to bear it. Yang Zhao went back to the house and ate while contacting Guo Fumin Qiang to tell her about this. Yang Zhao, I got a method, and I can let some people come and see it. Are you interested? The message came back soon. It seems that they are guarding their mobile phones every day. Guo Fumin Qiang, if there is such a method, is it dangerous? Yang Zhao, the specific risks are not known yet. This is my first time doing this. It depends on whether you are willing to risk your life to try it. There was silence on the other side for a long time. Guo Fumin Qiang, how do we get there specifically? Guo Fumin Qiang, what are your requirements? Yang Zhao, I'm a travel agency. If you want to come and have a look, you have to pay silver, and I only accept silver. Of course, you can pay gold, but you have to follow my exchange rate, which is 110. Guo Fumin Qiang, what if we want to buy something there? Can we only pay silver? Yang Zhao, of course, it's done according to the original contract we signed. The general equivalent here is gold and silver. I can't do anything about it. I know your concerns, but I don't have a solution now. Guo Fumin Qiang, okay, I'll wait for your good news. Yang Zhao put down her phone, stuffed a vegetable leaf into her mouth, slowly gritted her teeth, and began to think about these things. She understood why the other party seemed a little stingy, but there was no solution to this problem at all. First of all, under the current situation, it is impossible for the hometown to hope that the teleportation array will be arranged. There is no preparation for a new world over there. If the 2 worlds can communicate without obstacles rashly, then the hometown will inevitably usher in a huge change. First of all, what should we do if the virus in the 2 places crosses infects? During the Eastern Han Dynasty, a plague lasted for more than 50 years, and 5/7 of the population died. Once the teleportation array is opened rashly, it will be a rush for the performance of the King of Hell. Of course, with global integration now, the Western God of Death will also be affected. Look at the huge gate towers outside the cities in this world, and you can know a thing or two about the history of the plague here. Second, what if a cultivator or a monster goes to his hometown to make trouble through the teleportation array? Even if he is shot dead on the spot by the police and the army, it will inevitably cause social unrest. The Fang family in Kangcheng is an example. They covet the incense of Chichen Zhao, and Fang Shili swallowed the Dao tree of Yunayang Temple. Any country wants to develop steadily and avoid such unprovoked disasters as much as possible. So to speak, Uncle Gongsun is the gatekeeper of this road, but it's a pity that the gatekeeper here is gone. Yang Zhao once speculated in his heart that the reason why Shen Roi buried his body in Yunayang Temple outside Kangcheng was probably to guard the door. No one could bear such a responsibility, so Yang Zhao never planned to build the teleportation array with all her strength. In her plan, this thing had been said to be postponed for more than 10 years. The matter about silver was even simpler. Since the teleportation array could not be built in 10 or 20 years, Yang Zhao became the only communication medium. All the trade volume between the two worlds would be divided by Yang Zhao 1/10. To be honest, although she said it firmly at the beginning, she did not expect the other party to agree to her conditions. But Yang Zhao had a bottom line in her heart. Now the other party would not say anything about a few thousand taels, tens of thousands of taels, or even a million taels of silver, but once the transaction volume reached tens of millions of taels of silver, the commission would definitely decrease. And inevitably, in the first few years, there would be a huge trade deficit with the hometown. Silver would only go out and not in, and the price of silver would inevitably rise sharply. Other countries are not fools. Every tiny move of a big country will be investigated by someone. Such a huge benefit between the two worlds is enough for any country to start a war. Yang Zhao's crossing over is a great opportunity and a great challenge for Chichen Zhao. After practicing, she took some time to go to the government office in Huanggang to inquire about the travel agency's procedures. The officers in the government office didn't want to deal with this matter at all. Yang Zhao stuffed a few taels of silver into the hands of an officer, and the officer asked him to go in and report to the chief officer for her. After a while, he came out and led Yang Zhao into the government office. He turned left and right and stopped at a main hall. He asked her to wait for a while, and the officer stood at the door to report. "Sir, Yang Zhao has been brought in by me." A majestic voice sounded in the main hall. "Let her in. You can go back." Yang Zhao straightened his clothes and pinched the clean character to make sure there was no dirt on his body. Then he walked in quickly. There were 3 people in total, a middle-aged man in black official uniform sitting behind the main table, and the other 2 sitting next to him. Yang Zhao quickly glanced at them and bowed. "Yang Zhao from Yunayang Temple greets you, sir." The middle-aged man waved his hand. "No need to be polite. I heard that you want to bring people from the red country Shenzhou. Do you know the rules? Let me clear up your doubts. Many people have questions about these 2 points. I should have explained this first, but I didn't write it in detail enough. Then, there is a small bug. The big monk in the secret passage does not know the God Cheng Liang. I will modify it." Chapter 114, Rules. Yang Zhao stood in the middle of the hall, meeting the inquiring eyes of those people. "Your Excellency, I'm not clear about this matter, so I came to the government office to trouble you. Are you going to let them come in person?" the Lord asked again. Yang Zhao replied respectfully, "Your Excellency, I'm borrowing the beans for the machine." The Lord nodded and waved to the man on the left. "Give her the rules and regulations, Yang Zhao. Find a place to sit." The young man on the left stood up and handed Yang Zhao a booklet. She took the booklet, sat down at the last seat on the left, and read it quietly. Seeing Yang Zhao sitting down, the 3 people began to deal with the documents on the case again. The booklet in her hand was only 5 or 6 pages, with more than 100 precautions for borrowing beans for the machine. Yang Zhao read them carefully one by one. Generally speaking, they are divided into several categories. One is that people from the outside world must not cause trouble here, and then the compensation issue after causing trouble, and how to hold them accountable. One is what kind of protection outsiders who abide by the rules can get here. Only those who enter from the special places to enter this world can be protected. One is the places you can go. There are some places you can't go, one of which is the government office. You are not allowed to enter the prefectural school. The rest depends on whether the owner invites you. The other category is more complicated. For example, you need to report the number of people in advance. After you come, the government will give each bean a talisman. When you leave, the talisman must be returned. For example, you have to use gold and silver to buy things here, and foreign currency is not accepted. Yang Zhao has read almost everything. Relatively speaking, the rules in the booklet are mainly to protect the interests of the people here, and there is also a sense of promoting consumption. She waited for the adult to have a chance and stand up to reply. My lord, I have finished reading it. I wonder if I can copy a copy of this booklet? The adult put down the paper and pen in his hand and gently rubbed his eyebrows. This booklet was originally given to you. Just take it back. If you can guarantee to act according to the rules above, you can sign a contract with the government. Yang Zhao had no right to bargain in this matter. All she could do was nod. This time, the young man on the right made a gesture on a wooden board on the table. Dense words flew out of the board. He led these words to the contract and handed the contract to Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao opened it and found that her information on the contract was very detailed, including her name, age, when the pulse was opened, which sect she came from, where her hometown was, etc. Before this, Yang Zhao had never introduced herself to them in such detail. It seems that the government information in these places is exchanged, and the speed is very fast. Yang Zhao signed her name with the pen and ink on the table. After the adult signed her name, the contract turned into ashes. This time, there was a light golden line on Yang Zhao's wrist, which was more advanced than the red one. The contract must be signed once a year. If you cause any serious trouble after 1 year, you will not be able to sign the contract the next year. The middle-aged man said lightly from behind the seat. Yang Zhao, don't worry, sir, I will definitely abide by the rules. This is the same as traveling abroad. Yang Zhao bid farewell to these people, left the government office, rented a beast cart, and went to the place specified in the book to familiarize himself with it. This place is in the north of the city. It is a small square of 1 acre. There is a small government office next to the square. It is probably for issuing amulets. You can see that the traction beans have turned into little people and are led in and out of it. There are several merchants selling traction beans further away. This not so prosperous scene shows that Huanglangang is not a popular area for cross-border tourism. She spent half a tael of silver to find a relatively idle errand boy and asked him to introduce the process to her. The errand boy was very happy to earn half a tael of silver for a few words and talked to Yang Zhao in detail for a long time. She recorded the conversation on her cell phone while listening. After finishing, she thanked him politely and went home in a beast cart. She took photos of the articles in the booklet given by the government, packed them and sent them to Guo Fuminqiang. Yang Zhao, these are the rules here. Please read them carefully to those who want to come here, so that there won't be any trouble. Guo Fuminqiang, don't worry, I will make them memorize them. Yang Zhao asked again, how are those who went to exorcise the spirits? My brother hasn't contacted me for a long time. Guo Fuminqiang, the news from the front, said that the exorcism was successful, but those people were stationed there with the scientific research ship. Cell phones and other things are controlled items. Yang Zhao had a bottom line in her heart. As long as there was no danger to life, she didn't care about anything else. Yang Yun was already an adult and could take care of herself. As for her parents at home, the government would care more about them than she did. She looked at the time and went out for a meal. She was so hungry these days that she couldn't wait for the food to be cooked by herself. She often couldn't help eating it when it was half cooked. So for the sake of her gastrointestinal health, Yang Zhao ate out these days. After returning home, she stuffed another candy in her mouth to deceive herself. Now she had no choice but to practice and take medicine honestly, striving to build a foundation in 100 days. At the same time, she secretly calculated that when it was proven that her method was not dangerous, she could find some believers from those who followed the Yunnyang Temple Yang Zhao account to come and travel and earn some money. Chapter 115, Labyrinth. Yang Zhao studied the booklet in his hand again and found that its radiation range was only in Huanglangang. He didn't care about other places. In addition to practicing and mastering the Jayana long spear in his hand, Yang Zhao went shopping these days and began to slowly collect various information to prepare for the future. Yang Zhao went out for a few days and calculated the time. After a few days, it was time to go to the clan soul land again. She no longer ran out and stayed at home obediently to prepare for the clan soul land competition. As time went by, she drank more and more bone strengthening medicine, and her strength became stronger and stronger. The giant long spear in her hand also became heavier, and she became more and more comfortable with it. She recorded all of this, edited it and posted it on the internet. The previous video of Yang Zhao's first run-in of the giant long spear was full of comments. I said such a good model of a dragon would definitely not be used only once. That big leopard is also a good model, why doesn't it appear? The sister with the snake tail is also a good model, and she didn't appear again in LT, 2T, and GT. In the last video, the dragon was still in the water. This time it jumped from the air into the water. It's really handsome, but in comparison, the little sister below looks ridiculous. The dragon is much clearer during the day than at night, probably because of the added details. Report. Someone copied the blogger's video and posted it on the internet, and it went viral there. Which account? Call the blogger. Call the blogger. Do you have permission to forward the video? I went to see it, and they only forwarded a video of 1,000 people casting spells in an exam. A comrade from the Strategic Research Institute has already refuted the rumor. Hi. According to that foreign blogger, he made it himself. Shame on you. But does the Strategic Propaganda Bureau need to be involved in this matter? We are the newly established Chinese Cultivation Strategic Propaganda Bureau. Asterisk. 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 You are seriously ill. Remember to take medicine. Blame me _ summer insects cannot talk about ice. We firmly believe that this is a real world. She naturally did not authorize anyone to forward the video, but she did not care. Her hands could not be so long, so naturally there would be someone to take care of it for her. However, her fans have increased to more than 300,000 now, and the collection of incense has increased a little faster. When she was led into her soul land by external forces again, her soul had been covered with a layer of light golden clothes, which was the credit of the incense, to build a divine body. In addition, there was a drooping dragon following her. Yang Zhao took a look at it and asked with interest, "My name is Yang Zhao. I wonder what your name is?" The horned dragon glanced at her and answered unhappily, "Huzang." The dragon looked quite aloof. Yang Zhao waved gently, and the dragon turned into a spear and flew into her hand. She held the spear and followed the corridor she found to the fighting site. She did not delay this time. When she arrived, there were just over a dozen people inside. Although these people did not know her name, they all looked familiar with her. Because among so many people participating in the fight, she was the only one who had a branch in her hand as a weapon. Who knew that this time she was even more excessive and actually brought a real weapon? All of a sudden, the faces of the dozen people changed, and they looked at each other and saw the tension in each other's eyes. When Zhang Yan arrived, he saw the spear in Yang Zhao's hand. His eyes lit up, and he took a few steps over to greet her. "How are you these days? I heard that someone in He City got the giant long spear of the Loi He clan, and his name was Yang Zhao. I never thought that it was you who got it." Yang Zhao held the spear in his arms and returned the greeting. "I'm doing fine. Thank you for your concern, Brother Zhang. I was lucky to get this giant long spear. How is Brother Bao doing recently?" It's still the same. I eat and sleep every day, and I just get fat." Yang Zhao laughed when he heard it. Zhang Yan chatted with her for a while and felt more and more that something was wrong with Yang Zhao. "I always feel that your soul has become much stronger than the previous 2 times. Is it my illusion?" Yang Zhao remained silent. It was hard for her to say about this matter. Seeing that she didn't speak, Zhang Yan didn't ask any more questions. After a while, everyone was there, and a strange burly man stood up. "I will host this battle. This time, we won't fight each other, but we'll go through a maze." The man didn't introduce himself. He made hand gestures and uttered spells. After a while, Yang Zhao felt a black screen in front of her eyes. When she regained her sight, she was already in an unfamiliar environment and couldn't see anyone around her. She was in a long corridor. There was no barrier in front or behind. There were endless walls on both sides and no exit. Yang Zhao tried to make a mark on the wall with the giant long spear, but even if she used all her strength, there was still no mark left on the wall. It turned out that the maze was a real maze. She looked around and found that the roads on both sides were the same, and there was no difference. Huzang, do you know which way to go? I don't know. Why are you asking me about this? It was unknown whether he really didn't know or was pretending not to know. Yang Zhao had no choice but to pick one side and strode over. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116. Please note, Yang Zhao had just taken 2 or 3 steps when a harsh voice rang in her ears. Please pay attention. 20 steps ahead, you will meet someone who is going to compete. According to the comparison of the cultivation levels of both sides, please defeat the opponent in 3 moves. The opponent who exceeds 3 moves wins. She looked around and found no one. Moreover, there was one thing that she was more concerned about. Was her strength enough to defeat the enemy in 3 moves? Could it be that this voice was fooling her? She held the gun in both hands, maintained the attacking posture, and walked forward 20 steps. Sure enough, a figure emerged from the shallow to the deep. The opponent saw the big gun in her hand and did not say much to her. He moved closer and chopped with a palm. Yang Zhao stepped back 3 steps and the big gun in his hand stabbed at the opponent's waist. The man was weak and dodged the attack lightly. He kicked the ground with one foot and wanted to pounce on Yang Zhao's closed body. Yang Zhao collected the gun and swept it horizontally, heading straight for the man's waist. The man had no choice but to jump into the air. Yang Zhao quickly changed his moves and thrust his spear upwards. The opponent didn't have time to change his moves in the air and was hit hard. In an instant, he was thrown out and curled up on the ground in pain. He couldn't get up anymore. The voice gradually faded and finally disappeared. At this moment, Yang Zhao heard the voice of victory in her ears. Congratulations on your first victory. Please go to the next location. She continued to move forward with the spear. This time, she walked more than 10 steps and heard the next prompt. Please note that 20 steps ahead, you will meet the person who is competing. According to the comparison of the cultivation of both sides, you need to take 3 moves from the opponent before you can counterattack. Yang Zhao sucked his teeth when he heard this, put the spear down from his shoulder, and walked over with the spear in both hands. Sure enough, after 20 steps, a strong force nailed him in place. She struggled hard, but found that it didn't work. A person also appeared on the opposite side. He should have heard the prompt. He curiously circled around Yang Zhao. When he found that she couldn't move, he squatted down and studied the spear in her hand, muttering to himself. Is this a weapon condensed from the soul? Don't worry, I'm just taking a look. I won't move my hands. But I feel a bit of taking advantage of someone who can't move first. Yang Zhao was nailed to the spot awkwardly, watching the other person study the spear in her hand. Can you start faster? I feel embarrassed to be around me like this. The man replied without even raising his head. I'm not circling around you. I'm circling around this spear. You are circling around the Jiana long spear. Isn't it circling around me? Yang Zhao complained in her heart and ignored the other person. The man circled Yang Zhao back and forth for more than 10 circles before starting to attack her. After Yang Zhao had managed to hold on for 3 moves, she finally swung her spear and knocked the man out. The man hit the wall and slowly disappeared. One move determines the outcome. Yang Zhao was traumatized by the man's gaze and stood there for a long time before continuing to move forward. Please note that 20 steps ahead, you will meet the person who is competing. According to the comparison of the 2 sides cultivation, you need to blindfold yourself and defeat the other party to win. Yang Zhao finally realized that she should be one of the few people with the highest martial arts value among the contestants, otherwise they would not have targeted and restricted her every time. She walked forward 20 steps, and her eyes really went dark before she could see the opponent who was competing with her. There was silence all around, and because of her limited vision, there was no sound around, so she didn't find where the person was. She even had some doubts about where the person was. Yang Zhao did not wait for the other party to attack and directly used his own routine to play with the big gun in his hand vigorously, trying to protect his own safety. Unfortunately, after playing with the gun for a long time, he didn't feel that there was anyone here. Suddenly, she felt a chill on the back of her neck, and a slight breeze came into her ears from behind. Yang Zhao was startled and thrust the spear in his hand backwards, but unfortunately the opponent reacted quickly and didn't let him touch her at all. This time she had to learn a lesson. She stood still and waited for the opponent to attack so that she could catch him. Unfortunately, there was no movement for a long time. Who is the big brother who came? Can you be faster? The other party ignored him and remained silent. This match became a tug-of-war, which made her more and more impatient. Although Yang Zhao was a soul now, the feeling of hunger did not disappear, but slowly increased. She came here starving, but the other party ignored her. She felt oppressed, as if she had been stood up. Can't you be faster? What's the point of wasting so much time? Although Yang Zhao asked the question, she actually had the answer in her heart. This was useful, because the longer the time, the worse her mental condition became. For example, now she felt that there was a fire in her heart, which was burning more and more vigorously, and was difficult to put out. As time went on, Yang Zhao had an urge to eat people, a real cannibalism, and she wanted to eat the other party. At this moment, she keenly discovered a little wind coming from the direction of her left ear. Yang Zhao flicked his spear, and the Jiana long spear turned around her waist, and finally felt a little resistance. She chased hard in the direction of the resistance. The opponent was obviously not her opponent, and even his speed was not as fast as hers. Finally, Yang Zhao felt that the spear pierced something, and finally heard the opponent's muffled groan. For safety, Yang Zhao pulled the spear in his hand, and the tip of the spear shook, and stabbed several more times. This time, her eyes were bright again. Chapter 117, Win. Yang Zhao watched the other person's slowly fading figure, and controlled herself not to pounce on him and bite him. Even if it was just an idea, and no actual action, she felt deeply afraid. She wondered in her heart, why did she want to eat people again? Yang Zhao slapped the wall a few times with the Jiana long spear, to vent the nameless fire in her heart. She continued to move forward when her emotions slowly calmed down. Although the few people she met later were not as annoying as the last one, the hunger in Yang Zhao's soul was churning repeatedly, like waves, surging all over her body, trying to drown her. She could only bite her tongue hard and use the pain to regain her reason. This made her realize that this matter could not be delayed any longer. In the following time, Yang Zhao ran forward, like a wild boar rushing forward, and would hit anyone, and attack with all her strength when she met them, trying to hurry up and end this fight. Otherwise, she was afraid that she would lose her integrity in her later years, and she couldn't help but want to taste the taste of human souls. I'm still too kind, always thinking about them. Yang Zhao was thinking wildly, trying to divert his attention, and not always care about whether people are delicious or not. Please note that 20 steps ahead, you will meet someone who is competing. According to the comparison of the cultivation of both sides, please reduce your strength by half. If you defeat the opponent, you will win. She was a little surprised to hear this. This was definitely the lightest restriction on her. It seemed that the difference in strength between her and the newcomer was not that big. Suddenly she found that she met an acquaintance, Zhang Yan, and she faced Zhang Yan. Fellow Daoist Zhang, I didn't expect that we would meet. Zhang Yan smiled when he heard this. I didn't expect that the senior outside would think that you are stronger than me. I trust this senior very much, but I'm just curious, how could you have made such great progress in such a short time? Yang Zhao pursed his lips and said lightly, 100 days of foundation building. A trace of surprise flashed in Zhang Yan's eyes. 100 days of foundation building? It is said that this is very bitter. People with weak minds will be changed by it and become afraid of cultivation. Yang Zhao pushed her cheek. Of course, she was afraid, but her desire to become stronger was too strong. Otherwise she would always feel that she was in danger of losing her life. This is selected by my senior master. I feel that I'm making rapid progress, so I persisted. At this time, Zhang Yan's face showed admiration. Anyway, it is amazing that you can endure it from beginning to end. Let's try our skills." The two of them moved forward and fought together. Facts have proved that without the help of the dragon soul, although Yang Zhao is much stronger than Zhan Yan, he relies on his rich experience in fighting and almost overwhelms Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao did not dare to let the dragon come out to help her. She always had some premonitions in her heart that if the dragon soul appeared in this clan soul land, it would bring great risks to it. After practicing Taoism, she has experienced so many things and pays more and more attention to her intuition. And her intuition is generally very accurate, which makes it impossible to refute it. But Yang Zhao changed her mind and thought, no matter what, if the dragon spear is in danger and the injury is incurable, can she eat the dragon soul? Of course, she only dared to think about this in her heart, to amuse herself and others. As the fight between the two became more and more intense, Yang Zhao's strength did not decrease, but Zhan Yan was a little tired. It takes effort to use 4 ounces to move 1,000 pounds, but it is obvious that Zhan Yan is not as good as Yang Zhao in terms of endurance or strength. As expected, Yang Zhao slowly began to gain the upper hand. With a spear, Zhan Yan was forced to hide everywhere, and he didn't have the glory of suppressing Yang Zhao just now. In the end, Yang Zhao swept the tail of the spear on Zhan Yan's chest, and then his body gradually faded and disappeared. She actually won, and won the unattainable boy 3 months ago. He felt that the world had become a little bit more mysterious. It seems that the hardship of cultivation is not in vain. If you want to quickly increase your cultivation, building a foundation for 100 days is a good choice. Yang Zhao walked forward excitedly, hoping to meet the next person. This time she only met 3 people, and found that the walls on both sides slowly disappeared, and the whole fight was over. The burly man waved his hand slightly, and Yang Zhao walked forward a few steps uncontrollably. Those who stand up are the winners of this fight, and the rest are losers. Yang Zhao glanced, and found that there were only 5 winners, and she was one of them. The rest of the people were in an uproar, because Zhan Yan actually lost. Zhan Yan was one of the most powerful fighters among them, and no one had thought that he would lose. The burly man looked around and saw that no one objected, and then said, "This fight is officially over. I'm going back." Yang Zhao felt dizzy and returned to her bed. She quickly got up, took a candy from the table, and stuffed it into her mouth. She went to the kitchen to find some food to suppress the hunger that kept rising in her body. She ate too much without being careful. Chapter 118, In a Demon. Yang Zhao held his full stomach and asked Shenroi about this question in confusion. Shenroi didn't show any surprise when she heard Yang Zhao's question. "It's just a sequel. Fang Shi died in your soul land, which fueled the greed of your soul. Just bear with it, and it will get better slowly." This question had to be put aside. Yang Zhao focused all his attention on the matter of building the foundation. There is a special place for building the foundation in Huanglang. It is said that some cultivators are prone to heavenly tribulations when building the foundation. Whether it is thunder tribulations or heart tribulations, it will cause trouble. In order to avoid this situation, a special place for building the foundation was established. However, such places must be booked in advance, and the price is not cheap. A few days before she was going to build the foundation, Shenroi helped her analyze the heavenly tribulations that might be caused. If you cause a heavenly tribulation, you are most likely to encounter a heart tribulation. I have a meditation mantra here. You can recite it. It may be useful when the time comes. Yang Zhao took it and recited it carefully. He even dreamed of reciting it silently when he was sleeping. Finally, after drinking all the bone strengthening medicine, she hit the invisible barrier firmly, and the surging spiritual power in her body began to try to attack the weak points of the barrier. Yang Zhao suppressed the desire to break through on the spot and ran to a foundation building place that he had contacted in advance, regardless of the fact that it was already midnight. This place is called Yuanshu, a medium-sized commercial rental place for foundation building breakthroughs, with an area of half an acre. In order to prevent Yang Zhao from breaking through in the middle of the night, they have people to receive him even at night. As soon as she came in, someone came to greet her quickly. "I'm Yang Zhao, who booked a room a few days ago. I'm going to break through. Please help me arrange a room." The man went back to the counter to confirm, led Yang Zhao to a room, and considerately closed the door for her. As soon as Yang Zhao entered the room, the formation arranged on the wall emitted a faint light, which was not dazzling, but also made her vision clear. This is a room of 70 to 80 square meters, empty, without any furniture, and carpeted on the floor. It seems that you can only sit on the floor. She walked to the middle and sat down, began to calm down, drive away the distractions in her heart, slowly mobilized her spiritual power, and attacked the invisible barrier. The spiritual power was like a surging wave, with an unstoppable momentum, frantically rushing towards the barrier. Once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. I don't know how many times. The barrier was finally pierced by her, and finally collapsed completely. Yang Zhao didn't know what she was trapped by. There was darkness in front of her eyes and deathly silence in her ears. She seemed to be locked in a very quiet small room, and she couldn't even hear her own breathing. She wanted to move, but she couldn't feel her body. She wanted to shout a few times, but she couldn't make a sound. The silent room, the silent self. She wondered if she was dead. No, how could she be dead? I just went to Xiaoyang Mountain with my brother to shoot a video. Where is my brother? Was I kidnapped? Someone drugged me, right? So I must have fainted, and my thoughts were trapped in my body, so it was dark around me? Would I get claustrophobia in this situation? Yang Zhao couldn't help but think wildly, but no matter how she thought, time was still moving slowly. She didn't know how long it had been, but she was already a little scared. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't see, couldn't hear. There was no need to breathe, and she couldn't feel the existence of her body. With her 5 senses closed, and her thoughts running wild, she couldn't help but think of a video news she had seen before. There was a vegetative person abroad. Although he was a vegetative person, his brain was always awake. He was trapped in his body for 23 years. It was not until the advancement of technology that his abnormality was discovered. It was called extreme loneliness. Would she encounter a situation like his? Yang Zhao's thoughts were churning, stirring her mind more and more. She felt as if several days had passed. Would she really become a vegetative person? No, she had to think of something good. She forced her thoughts back. She started to think of some interesting things. Anime, TV series, and novels she had watched before. It still didn't work. Even though she tried hard to control her thoughts, the fear was still spreading rapidly and occupying her soul. It seemed like a month had passed. Yang Zhao tried everything but couldn't control her rioting soul. She wanted to scream, run around, and even wanted to commit suicide. No, this was wrong. What was wrong? Why did she feel something was wrong? She muttered, rise up, people who don't want to be slaves. Once again, she struggled to suppress her wandering thoughts, and began to think about the inharmonious things in this matter. There must be something she didn't remember. There must be something she forgot. She went through it all from the beginning. Why did they go to Xiaoyang Mountain that day? Were they going to shoot a video? Chapter 119. Chapter 119. Over. No, they didn't go to Xiaoyang Mountain to shoot a video. What did they go there for? It was for. Yang Zhao felt a slight pain in her head. Headache? Then she realized it and was overjoyed. She could actually feel the pain. She could feel the pain in her head. She endured the pain, suppressed her joy, and continued to think about this matter. Why did she go to Xiaoyang Mountain? What is there on Xiaoyang Mountain? Uncle Gongsun. Dao tablets. Yang Zhao seemed to be struck by lightning and remembered something that had been ignored. They went to Xiaoyang Mountain for her Dao tablets. She traveled through time. She practiced Taoism. Now, she is building a foundation. Boom. When her consciousness returned to her body, Yang Zhao suddenly opened her eyes, and the light on the magic circle was cast into her vision, so warm and bright. After a long while, until her chest hurt slightly, she remembered to breathe. She let out a long breath, and stumbled out of the room. Everything around her was too small. Are you okay, customer? The night watchman in the store looked at her cautiously. How much? You've been in there for 2 days and 2 nights, a total of 52 taels of silver. Yang Zhao trembled as she took out her Kyankan bag. paid the silver, and ran out of the big house. Until she opened the door and rushed outside, the open space relaxed her tense spirit. Looking up at the sky, even the huge planet looked cute in Yang Zhao's eyes. The wind around her blew her face with a chill. For a moment, she even felt tears welling up in her eyes. She really felt alive, and the joy pumping in her heart overwhelmed her whole body. It was still early in the morning, and the streets were sparsely populated. Yang Zhao walked home with a smile. When she stood at the door, she hesitated for a while, and then she heard Shenroi calling her from inside. "What are you doing standing at the door like an idiot? Why don't you come in?" Yang Zhao pushed open the door, and saw the master standing in the yard. "Master." Shenroi stared at Yang Zhao and said, "You came back a little late. Did you encounter a heart calamity?" "It seems so." Yang Zhao was a little unconfident. She had not experienced it before, so she was not sure. "It's all over. Congratulations on your successful foundation building. Go back to your room and meditate to consolidate your cultivation." Shenroi instructed her and turned back to her room. Unfortunately, she didn't want to enter the room. Yang Zhao injured the physical fear and dragged a quilt out of the room and spread it on the ground in the yard. She sat on the quilt with one leg and began to circulate the San King Zhengyang meridian. The stream in her body turned into a small river, flowing happily. After a big cycle, she felt refreshed and came back to her senses. She found that there was a sticky patch on her body. She pinched her fingers with one hand and uttered a few words. "Clean." The spell swept through her body, and her whole body was dry in an instant. Although this was a small spell, after simplifying the spell into one word, she actually succeeded in casting it. This incident made her extremely happy, and she tried several small spells she often used one by one. Sure enough, some of the cumbersome spells in the past can now be cast easily. Moreover, several offensive spells, such as Water Ball spell, Fireball spell, etc., have greatly increased their power. However, the yard is narrow, so she did not dare to use her full strength. By the time she reacted, it was already bright outside, and it was almost noon. Shenroi was standing next to her, watching her tossing herself there. Yang Zhao felt a little embarrassed to be looked at. "Master, it's noon now, why don't you go out and have a good meal?" After he said that, Yang Zhao realized that she was already hungry. She had successfully built her foundation, which was a great joy, and it made her stay away from the bone-strengthening medicine soup. If Shenroi could not eat, she really wanted to invite her master to go to the hotel to have a big meal to celebrate. It was a pity. Yang Zhao made up his mind to find out what ghosts can eat, but he didn't know if burning a stick of incense would work. While thinking about it, Yang Zhao found a small restaurant, ordered half a table of dishes, and started eating. Huanglang Port is located on the coast, and each restaurant has its own unique way of eating seafood. For example, this restaurant has a dish that makes seafood into dessert. The waiter in the restaurant strongly recommended this dish, and Yang Zhao couldn't save face, so she ordered one. It looked like a sea snail, a sea hare or something like that, with the internal organs removed, slightly steamed, and sprinkled with fruit sweet juice. When the chopsticks touched it, it was actually bouncy. Some of these dishes were beyond her psychological scope, but seeing that many people on both sides were eating this dish, Yang Zhao thought the first bite tasted weird, so she took another bite, and it was that kind. You can admit that it is delicious, but you also have to admit that its taste is indeed a bit weird. She is from the north, and she can't accept sweet seafood. Until half of the table of dishes was eaten, she didn't touch the dish for the third time. When she was paying the bill, the waiter in the restaurant looked at the remaining signature dish of their restaurant and showed a surprised expression. This dish was not touched for many bites, and the rest of them, the staff, could eat it. Chapter 120, Relief. The sequel of the heart tribulation was that Yang Zhao didn't dare to enter the house. She simply took out the quilt and mattress and slept in the yard in the cold wind. It was already autumn in Huanglang Port, and the night wind was especially cold. If she hadn't successfully built her foundation and was not afraid of the cold, she would have caught a cold and had a fever. Shenroi also allowed her strange behavior, but from then on he never left the house at night, and he was willing to go out and stroll by himself during the day. Yang Zhao understood that she had caused him inconvenience, but there was nothing she could do. Seeing that he was willing to go out and play, she went to the silver shop to exchange some gold leaves. She stuffed a few gold leaves, a few taels of silver, and a handful of copper coins into the newly bought purse, and gave it to Shenroi as a filial gift. He didn't refuse, and walked out slowly with the purse in his hand. Is it that people with high skills are brave? Or is it that ghosts are not afraid of being robbed? Anyway, this purse has never been lost. Yang Zhao honestly consolidated his cultivation for a few days, and began to try to enter the land of souls. Maybe she had already established her foundation, and she could enter and exit freely after just a few attempts. Unfortunately, the soul land was not very big, and she felt very uncomfortable staying in it, and always had the urge to escape. However, it was a little difficult to enter the clan soul land from the soul land. She prayed many times, but was not allowed to enter. The oppressive environment around her made her a little irritable. Shenroi had no good solution, and only said that anyone who was pious could enter. Pious? Just her? The object of her piety was never gods and Buddhas. There was no other way. Yang Zhao came up with a bad idea. She recited history books in it, starting from the Xia and Shang dynasties, and recited all the historical figures and events she knew one by one. She didn't remember much, and for the accuracy of the information, she only recited the figures and events in the high school history books. After college, she said goodbye to history. But soon she found that the more she recited these things, the more familiar they became, and the memory of her high school studies in her mind became clearer and clearer, as if the college entrance examination was still yesterday. Yang Zhao estimated that it was the benefit of building the foundation, otherwise she would not be able to remember so much. Unexpectedly, this method actually hit the mark and succeeded. She looked at the gate that appeared in front of her, her heart full of joy. She could finally walk out of this narrow place. She walked slowly forward along the corridor and saw the entrance of the hall after a few steps. Yang Zhao thought to herself, unlike other tribes, this is the land of the clan soul of her family, and even the distance is so close. She walked into the entrance and saw a wide hall. This is really big. If the land of the clan soul they fought for was a palace, then this one of her family would be half of the Forbidden City. There were dense reliefs of figures engraved on the walls, and you could vaguely see mountains, rivers, sacrifices, battlefields, etc. How could this place be so big? Yang Zhao began to slowly look at the reliefs along the wall. The men and women on it, young and old, were all dressed very delicately. It was a pity that Yang Zhao didn't know them, but those who had a foot in the land of the clan soul should have had their names in history books. It was a pity that she couldn't match the names with the characters. After walking for most of the day, Yang Zhao finally saw the mythical figures. These figures were solemn and dignified, with elaborate clothes and ornaments. They were either stepping on auspicious clouds or riding mounts. The reliefs were shrouded in golden light, which seemed to be incense. Even among the mythological figures, she didn't know many. She recognized Fu Lu Keishao, recognized Buddha Guanyin, recognized the 4 elephants, and recognized the monkey. After searching carefully for a long time, she quickly bowed to the great sage twice, thanking him for lending his divine power to help her open her meridians and spirits, and even helped her twice when facing Fang Shili, which was a great favor to her. There are actually quite a lot of murals of gods and immortals here, and there are thousands of people in Buddhism and Taoism combined. Then he saw gods and immortals wearing strange clothes, who looked like ethnic minorities, but unfortunately he didn't recognize any of them. When she walked to the edge of the murals of gods and immortals, she also saw the suffering Jesus, the angels with wings spread, and the fallen demons. It was not because she was familiar with foreign myths, but because the figure nailed to the cross was too distinctive, and the huge wings behind all the angels were also very recognizable. Unfortunately, she only knew Jesus, and didn't know any other angels, let alone any demons. It seems that there are so many Christians in the country that these gods have murals on the walls. Yang Zhao was a little bored when she didn't recognize most of the characters while walking around. Her thoughts drifted, and she remembered the purpose of her entering the land of clan souls. She was experimenting with incense to build a divine body to summon believers. Yang Zhao ran back to sit under the relief of the great sage and began to use incense to build a divine body. Threads of golden incense spread to her eyes, and star-like points of light appeared in front of her eyes. Only more than 200 were conspicuous. She randomly observed the brightest one and couldn't tell who this light point was. She changed a few more light points to observe and found that it was just a faint light point, unlike the myth that could know his name and origin. Yang Zhao didn't dare to move and turned back to reality. I have to ask Shenryu about this matter to see what to do next. I have a bug again. I will make a minor repair tomorrow. It will not affect the progress of the article. Chapter 121. Contact. Shenryu had anticipated all this. You are not a god. You don't have a godly position. It's good that you can see these. Yang Zhao had a headache. Then how can I transport these people's souls over here? What good things are you thinking about? What you transported is not a soul, but a little spiritual consciousness. The fairy beans can't carry souls. Otherwise what will happen to the souls when the fairy beans are in danger? Yang Zhao suddenly realized that Miss Ruojuan didn't care about it. She should have thought of it earlier. Who in this world dares to joke with their own souls? Shenryu continued to add, put a little spiritual consciousness in a bean. You have to always think about this spiritual consciousness, and when someone activates it, you can control the fairy bean yourself. Yang Zhao asked another question. Then how can I be sure that the spiritual consciousness I transported is what I want? Are you stupid? Of course, it's a contract. The two of you use incense to seal the contract. When the time comes, you will naturally know how to distinguish. Shenryu's eyes were helpless. Yang Zhao has grown up, and she doesn't care about such trivial matters at all. How do you make a contract with the incense? You agree on a code. He makes a wish to you with a code. You respond to her and make a wish, and the contract is concluded. Yang Zhao was a little scratching his head. Could the code be the king of heaven and the tiger of earth? What are the codes usually? Can we guess them? Shenryu knew she was thinking wrongly when she saw her expression. It's alright. In order to consolidate their incense, the gods usually use their own titles and names. Of course, they usually won't respond. This matter is actually a bit difficult to handle, because what if someone pretends to be a god in the future? It should be said that someone will definitely pretend to be a god. Yang Zhao, since it's all a contract, I don't need to respond with incense. I should be able to use a written contract. Shenryu nodded. Of course, it's just a little bit of money. Yang Zhao thought about it and decided to use a written contract just as a signed contract so that she wouldn't recognize the wrong person later. She told Guo Fumin Qiang about this matter, and they said that they had already selected the person and could come at any time, and asked her to buy some open vein leaves every day according to the last price. Yang Zhao, are you going to expand the research so soon? Guo Fumin Qiang, it's not about expanding the research, but there are too few things, not enough to share. If you can buy some seeds, it will be even better. Yang Zhao, I have never seen seeds of this thing on the market. This is not easy to do. Guo Fumin Qiang, it doesn't matter, just think about it. That day, Yang Zhao ran all over Huanglangang and bought more than 30 pieces of vein leaves, which he transported back with a road sign. At the same time, he also received several thousand taels of silver paid by the other party. Zhaoyangshan Research Institute. A graduate student ran into the laboratory from outside excitedly. Boss, there is good news. A man in his 40s or 50s looked up from the documents, took off his glasses, rubbed his nose and scolded softly. What are you chattering about? Others are still doing experiments. What if you disturb them and make a mistake in their data? But the graduate student ignored his boss's scolding. His face was still red and his eyes were shining. Just now I was at the door and saw that the materials for the last experiment have been transported in. The eyes of the whole laboratory turned to stare at his red face. The boss stood up from his chair and asked, really? Don't tease me again. How is it possible? And this time I was the only one who went there for nothing, and others haven't seen it yet. Before he finished speaking, the boss had already run out of the laboratory in 2 steps. forgetting to take the glasses on the table. The graduate student followed him out excitedly like a little tail. Others in the laboratory also chirped like sparrows. It's finally here, but the first batch of experimental materials is too little. Not enough for me to run one circle in the centrifuge. What? Centrifuge? Why are you so greedy? It's good enough if I can give you some extract. What a pity. We are not allowed to publish the paper based on this stuff, and it can't be used as a thesis. I say, some comrades, don't let your thinking slip. It's good enough if you can publish this thing after more than 10 years. How dare you write a watered down paper? In the conference room, a female soldier in her 30s had already been surrounded by a group of professors. These days, RT3 group has made the most important discovery about this thing, but the progress of the experiment has been seriously delayed due to the lack of research materials. This time, you have to give us at least 20 leaves. Wow. Leo Zhao, you are so arrogant. The discovery of the T3 group is important, but isn't the discovery of my Z1 group important enough? This time, our group must take the majority. Whatever you say, my D6 has the most graduate students and the youngest average age. We are the most energetic group for research. The female soldier listened to the noise that was comparable to a rural market and silently turned up the little bee on her waist. Dear professors, a total of 15 pieces of experimental materials were sent here this time. We need to discuss the distribution. The group of professors below were directly blown up. Chapter 122, Influence. A secret office. 4 or 5 people sat beside the table, each holding a pile of information. These are the physical data of those people after their meridians were opened and their spirits were awakened. Generally speaking, their bodies are getting stronger at a very fast rate. According to our estimates, they will be able to transcend the human category within 1 or 2 years. And most importantly, in this process, those people continue to excrete substances that are harmful to the body, such as microplastics, heavy metals, trans fatty acids, etc. In other words, not only have their bodies become stronger, they have also become very healthy. The office was filled with the sound of flipping papers, and half an hour later, no one started to discuss. The time is still too short, and the data is still not much, but it is already amazing. Yes, and this enhancement is multidimensional, with muscles, skin, bones, and internal organs all enhanced to varying degrees. We have speculated that the human body can heal many hidden diseases without medicine in this process, such as fatty liver, myopia, and stomach problems. In other words, once this method becomes popular, it will have unlimited benefits for improving the physical fitness of the people. But it is dangerous to open the meridians of adults without the big ginkgo tree guarding it. No one dares to do it rashly. If this problem is not solved, it will be difficult for us to promote it on a large scale in the military. We can't promote it to the entire army by watching Journey to the West. What's wrong with that? Watch the original and the TV series together. Why did I hear that? There is no risk in opening the meridians of babies who are just a few months old. That's what they teach in theory over there, but whoever dares to use a child for this experiment will be shot. We still need more and more extensive data, but other things can be put on the agenda now. We have convened many experts in acupuncture for training. It is estimated that after some time, these people will be able to take on the main force of opening the meridians. When the meridians are opened, our pilots will definitely be chosen first, so the first thing should be that our Air Force's planes can be accelerated. Manned rockets should be possible as well. Why do you get all the benefits from your Air Force? Even if the meridians are opened, our Navy should be chosen first, and our submarine soldiers should be given priority. In terms of combat effectiveness and contribution, our army should be the first. At the same time, a fierce debate was also taking place in the office of a certain aircraft design institute. Has the SASAC gone crazy? They asked us to speed up the fighter jets, and according to the data they gave, the acceleration that the pilots will have to endure when the plane takes off can reach 17 or 18 grams. We can increase it, but can the pilots survive? This is a death order from above. Just focus on your research and development, and don't worry about anything else. What do you mean I don't have to worry about it? If it were an unmanned aircraft, it would be fine. But for a plane that requires a human pilot to suddenly speed up, it is a disregard for human life. Everyone knows that airplanes can speed up. But what limits the speed of airplanes is the human body. We humans simply cannot withstand such fast acceleration. What you know, the higher ups must also know. You just need to focus on research and development. Not only our institute has taken on this task, but other institutes have as well. You are wasting the people's money and murdering pilots' lives. I will report this to the higher ups and I will report you. A certain online platform. What's going on? I saw several TV stations are going to broadcast Journey to the West. Didn't Journey to the West stop during the summer season? Where is it? Let me go check. Picture. These TV stations all have plans to broadcast Journey to the West. Maybe there are too many scandals in the entertainment industry recently, so there is a shortage of TV series. You are so mean. What nonsense are you talking about? Hiya, now that you mention it, I really suspect that some of them are going to have their reputations ruined, and the TV stations are using Journey to the West to fill the gaps. Please don't say that it's my brother, hash. It's over, equals, run. Am I the only one born in the 2010s who hasn't watched Journey to the West? Oh, those born in the 2010s, go back and do your homework. Why are you surfing the internet? Huanglang Port. Yang Zhao ran around for a long time and bought a box of beans, a total of more than 50 beans. The waiter in the store taught her how to use these beans for a long time. This thing is not too expensive, 2 for 1 teal of silver, and the more you buy, the more discounts you get. When she came back, she also bought a lot of candies and stuffed them into her kayankan bag. After returning with the box, she hid under the quilt in the yard, holding her mobile phone and communicating with Guo Fumin Kayang about the people who were coming. Yang Zhao, I hope that the people who come here are all young people. I don't dare to accept old people. Guo Fumin Kayang, we have also considered this aspect. The first batch of people who go must be young and strong. The 5 people we have tentatively decided are all no more than 40 years old. Yang Zhao, okay, let the 5 people sign the book contracts I sent back later. I can't transport those who haven't signed. In addition, you should memorize the rules of coming here, so as not to cause any trouble. Guo Fumin Kayang, don't worry, everyone can recite them by heart. They watch your videos every day, and have even gone to Yunayang Temple to burn incense for you. Yang Zhao frowned and looked at his reply message in silence. Burning incense for herself always made people feel uncomfortable. After all, in her worldview, only dead people burn incense. But there was no other way. In order to increase the success rate of this experiment, all variables must be taken into consideration. She could only be burned by others. Yang Zhao put the written book contract under the Taoist card and pinched the seal with one hand. The sky and the earth are boundless, and the universe is changing. The things were gone in the blink of an eye. She put a candy in her mouth and slowly waited for time to pass. She was no longer hungry, but she always wanted to eat. For the sake of her stomach, she could only eat some candy to satisfy her hunger. More than an hour later, there was a red line on her wrist, a few miniature cameras on the ground, and several hundred teals of silver. The silver included the cost of buying the beans and the contract, as well as the expenses of the 5 people. Now it was kept with her. When they buy things, Yang Zhao will pay the silver and give her the purchase fee according to the original contract. If it is not enough, he will make up for it. Yang Zhao took out 5 beans and held them in his hand. He found the most comfortable position in the quilt and lay down. He chanted the spell softly and entered the land of souls. She went to the land of clan souls through the land of souls and sat under the relief of the great sage to turn the incense and build the body of the god. In the hazy light, among the many bright spots in front of her, she found the 5 bright lights tied with red ropes and connected to him. She gently pulled the red rope, and the 5 bright spots separated a little starlight and flew towards her. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123, First entry. Yang Zhao instantly withdrew from the line of clan souls, clasped her hands together, and held the bean in the middle. Pulling the soul. The bean in her hand was slightly warm, and the color had changed from green to emerald green. Yang Zhao knew that this was done. She sent a message to Guo Fumin Kayang, asking the people there to be ready at all times. She walked out of the gate, rented a beast cart, and went to the Huanglangang Yamen Regulations entry square. They came here through formal procedures this time, as tourists, not illegal residents. Correspondingly, Huanglangang will also guarantee their safety. In the small yamen next to the square, Yang Zhao registered the 5 pulsating beans here, and then the registration staff stamped the 5 beans one by one, and then took out 5 talismans. The deposit for this talisman is 50 taels of silver. These talismans are numbered. You have to match the number on the bean to use it. After the talisman is used, it must be returned. If it is intact, the deposit will be returned to you. If it is damaged, you will pay according to the price. Yang Zhao took out the silver and walked out of the gate with the talisman. He picked a place with few people in the square, pinched the beans, inputted magic power, and threw them on the ground. The 5 beans instantly turned into 5 little men more than 1 meter tall, and the small poke on their bodies also grew bigger. When these little men opened their eyes, their faces were full of disbelief. *CK This is actually true. I can actually become so small. This is unscientific. Is this my hand? Why does it feel so strange? Just when everyone else was getting excited, the little bean man who was shouting I fell to the ground with a plop, and then turned into a grey-white bean. The other 4 little bean men surrounded him. What's wrong? Is there something wrong with him? I don't know. Is his life in danger? One of the little bean men reacted very quickly. Does anyone else feel strange? Please report if you feel uncomfortable. No, me neither. Yang Zhao was also shocked by this change and hurriedly squatted down to pick up the bean. It was obvious that the bean had lost its vitality and could no longer turn into a little bean man. I didn't expect such a mess to happen during the first experiment. Yang Zhao packed up the waste beans on the ground. I'll give you the things first, and I'll contact someone to solve this problem. She pressed the talisman according to the number stamped on the little bean man, and distributed it to them one by one. Take this thing with you. Let's go back to my place first, and when we get there, I can contact the other side to ask about his situation. The little bean man who was obviously the leader just now spoke up. Okay, just listen to Comrade Yang. Everyone is not allowed to run around. Follow Comrade Yang, and don't fall behind. Yang Zhao led the team in front, and the other little bean men lined up and followed her, making her look like a mother hen. Because of the sudden change just now, everyone lost interest in strolling around, and even if they were interested, they couldn't stroll around. She rented a beast car outside the square, and the little bean men jumped on the car one by one, and she sat in the front to go home together. Although some changes had just happened, the unfamiliar scene around them still made these little bean men excited, and the 4 little bean men gathered together and whispered, "Look, there is really a person with a long tail over there. With his body structure, can such a thin tail support his body? What's the big deal? I've seen 2 or 3 people with horns on their heads. Do you think it hurts to have horns on their heads? It's probably a species with horns. Have you seen cattle and sheep have headaches because of horns? In the sky over there are planes, birds, people. There are really people flying over there. Where are they? Why can't I see them? That thing in the sky over there is getting bigger. Oops, it's falling down. Why is there no one flying above our heads?" 3 of the little bean people were getting more and more excited, and their voices were getting louder and louder. Another little bean person warned seriously, "Everyone, keep your eyes focused, so as not to be misunderstood as hostile." "Yes, Captain." All of a sudden, they became quiet, but their eyes were full of excitement, and they didn't even blink along the way. They had all received tourism training, and it was very impolite to talk about others in a strange place. It was just that they had just come here, and couldn't hold back their emotions. When they arrived at Yang Zhao's rental place, she led them to the yard. Seeing the bedding on the ground in the yard that she had forgotten to put away, she explained with some embarrassment, "I have been sleeping in the yard these days. Although these little beam people were puzzled, they did not dwell on this. They found a place to sit down and waited for Yang Zhao to communicate with the other side. The 4 little bean people looked at her eagerly. She was a little embarrassed to send messages under the quilt, so she could only call the little beam people to come over and help her block the view. Yang Zhao sat on the ground, and these little beam people surrounded her and watched her send messages. Yang Zhao, someone had a problem just now. What happened? After waiting for a while, the other side replied. Guo Fumin Qiang, our preliminary diagnosis is respiratory alkalosis, which means he fainted due to excitement. After he finishes breathing oxygen, we will conduct a more detailed examination. How are the 4 people over there now? Yang Zhao, they are in good condition and very lively. Then he pressed the voice button and asked the 4 little bean men to say a sentence each and send it to Guo Fumin Qiang. He also took a photo of them and sent it to reassure them. Guo Fumin Qiang, are these 4 dwarfs really people? They don't sound like people. Yang Zhao, they are evil. If you are really curious, you can find someone to wake him up and ask. Guo Fumin Qiang, no need. There is another person breathing oxygen. I will ask him later. The 4 little men looked at the information on Yang Zhao's phone and exhaled at the same time. It's okay. I was just afraid that they would be tempted by Comrade Yang's proposal and wake me up. Who wouldn't be afraid? I didn't know that Zhang Xianjun could actually suffer from respiratory alkalosis. I can laugh at him for a while. When I go back, I can laugh at this for the rest of my life. But it seems that the change in our mood can affect the body over there. Yang Zhao took out the instruction manual of the traction bean from her arms. This was what she found and wrote down when the waiter instructed her. Inside were some precautions for the traction bean. It was written that the little bean man transformed by the traction bean only entrusted a little bit of human consciousness. If the emotions on the spiritual side fluctuated too much, it would also affect the human body. What Yang Zhao understood was that this was equivalent to wearing VR glasses and bungee jumping inside. If a person was frightened by the scenery and the VR glasses, his own body would also scream loudly. Chapter 124, Records. Seeing that the experimenters over there were fine, everyone was relieved. Yang Zhao discussed with the 4 little bean people and decided that 1 little bean person would stay at home to calculate the time difference between the 2 places, and the other 3 little bean people would go out with her to purchase supplies. The little bean person who stayed at home also borrowed a mobile phone from her, saying that he would use it to tell time. Yang Zhao took out a bunch of purses with broken corners and holes, put macro cameras in them, gave one to each little bean person, and then led them out. Their purpose was very clear. Yang Zhao led them to the place where low-level spells and magic tools were sold. They bought a large bag of small things, more than 200, and spent nearly 1,000 taels of silver. They wanted things for water purification, dust removal, disinfection, body purification, etc. But there were very few low-level magic tools on the market that could attack. According to rumors, the government had strict control in this regard, and it was not allowed to be sold openly in the city. What was sold were some daily necessities for civilian use. As for the booklets for learning spells and the methods of cultivation, they were not circulated in the market. In Huanglang, all those who want to practice martial arts and learn magic must go to the prefectural school. They can have a family background, but they must attend classes in the prefectural school to have a proper identity as a cultivator. Others are considered heretics and are despised by other righteous cultivators. The group wandered around for a while, and when they saw a shop, they wanted to pack up everything and take it back. It was not until the sky darkened that they returned to the yard where Yang Zhao rented with large and small bags of things. When they entered the door, Yang Zhao found that there was suddenly a simple sundial on the ground in the yard of his home. Shenroi and a little bean man gathered together, staring at the phone next to the sundial. Yang Zhao looked at it strangely and leaned over to ask in a low voice, "Master, what are you doing?" Shenroi didn't even raise her head and blew her to the side. "Get out of the way, don't you know that you are blocking the sun?" Yang Zhao looked at his shadow and moved 2 steps to the side. "What are you doing? So focused, is it fun?" The 3 little bean men who came behind put down the things in their hands and also came over. Comrade Yang, they are calculating the time to see how much time is different here from the time on Earth. Yang Zhao blinked his eyes. You should ask me this. A day here is about 2 hours longer than ours. The little bean man who was hunched over the sundial said, I need some more detailed receipts. Shenryu shook his hands and blasted them. Let's go. What are you guys doing here? Yang Zhao and the other little bean men had to disperse. It was dark, and she was hungry. Little bean men didn't need to eat, so she went out to find food. Since she established her foundation, she was not easy to get hungry. Sometimes she didn't eat for a few days, and was still very lively, and had no problem adapting. But she was used to eating 3 meals a day. If she didn't eat something, she would always feel empty and wronged. Besides, there were many restaurants nearby that she hadn't tried yet. These fresh and novel foods always aroused Yang Zhao's interest. When she came back, after eating and drinking, night had fallen, and the stars in the sky were hanging in the sky with the huge planet. When she returned to the yard, the 4 little people were looking up at the starry sky, holding pens in their hands, writing and drawing on paper, and Shenryu was watching the fun beside them. Yang Zhao leaned over to take a look, and found that they were observing the stars. The sky was divided into 4 parts by them, and each person recorded 1 part. She squatted beside Shenryu and asked curiously, do they want to calculate the position of this star field? Master, are you also interested in this? Shenryu replied, while turning the silver conch in his hand. That must be what they meant. They want to determine the distance between the 2 places, but it's probably difficult. We can't see many stars with our eyes alone, let alone the eyes of the Kyanji bean, so I'll help them. One of the little bean people also echoed, that's right, the eyes of this body are not very good, and many things need Senior Shen to remind us. Senior Shen, if I can open my meridians and awaken my spirit one day, can I worship you as my master? Shenryu laughed, I'm a dead man, how can I accept disciples? If you want to worship Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao grinned. How could she teach others when she hasn't learned it herself? But she couldn't ruin Shenryu's stage, so she could only stand by and smile. The 4 little bean people followed suit and made a noise with good intentions. Then Comrade Yang will be the elder in the future. Please take good care of us. Can I call you master first? Why are you so shameless? Thick-skinned people can eat as much as they want. Thin-skinned people can't eat. Ha 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 ha. Until Yang Zhao got into bed and went to sleep, the 4 little bean people stayed in the yard to record the star map all night. When she woke up, the group of people were still looking up at the stars. Didn't you sleep all night? One of the little bean people rubbed his eyes subconsciously. I can't sleep. We can't hold on for long anyway. If we don't seize the time, it may not be us who come next time. And we are not sure whether this experiment is successful, nor are we sure whether this is the only opportunity for the experiment. It's always right to remember more. Yang Zhao suddenly realized that, although their consciousness is now in the body of the little bean people, their own bodies are in their hometown. It is not possible for a person to not eat or drink, even if they rely on intravenous infusion to transport nutrients. They can't hold on. Moreover, if a little bean man went back early due to an accident, Guofu Minimum Kyang might re-evaluate the risk of the experiment. If the evaluation result is not ideal, it is very likely that a new batch of people will come to share the experimental risk. These people are both experimenters and researchers. They are the country's precious wealth to be able to come here in the first batch. It is impossible for their health to be damaged because of this incident. They can come here often in the future, but their health may die after a while. Today's chapter, an elderly person who is very close to me passed away. I may not have time to write, and I have to rely on saving manuscripts to make a living, but my old book friends all know that I often cut out lines and don't have many manuscripts saved. Chapter 125, Experiment Success. Seeing that the 4 people had gone back, Yang Zhao took the big bag of things they had bought, along with the macro camera and the star map they had recorded, and carried them back all at once. More than an hour later, there was a big bag of silver on the ground, which was the compensation for the difference in shopping and commission for her. She put the silver away and ran to show off to Shenryu. Master, what can you eat? Do you want me to buy you some incense sticks? There are those big incense sticks as thick as arms, which are very popular with incense lovers. Shenroi looked at her with disdain, and Yang Zhao almost engraved the 4 big words "I make money" on his forehead. I don't eat anything, and I don't want anything. If you have nothing to do, practice how to fly. You have successfully established your foundation, so you should do some foundation building things. He turned around and turned the silver conch out of the yard and went to play by himself. Shenroi always found some fun for herself, and she had a free and easy temperament. Yang Zhao smiled foolishly and retreated to the quilt, holding the low-level spell book given by Zhongsheng, and found the flying spells such as flying in the clouds and mist, and began to study. She was actually a little afraid of learning to fly. She always felt that she was not safe in the sky alone, and she felt a little empty. She had never been on a plane since she was a child. The first time she went to the sky was when she rode the black rock bird. Unexpectedly, in just 3 or 4 months, she would learn how to fly in the sky by herself. Thinking about it this way, coming to this world is still a bit magical. When Yang Zhao was studying the book, she would also wonder and think, is my cultivation too fast? In the novels, cultivation is too fast, and it is all magic, so there is no danger, right? But she will soon focus her thoughts on the book. No matter what, the rapid improvement of her cultivation is the greatest guarantee for her safety, so why bother about the magic and the righteous? In a hole of a docking research base, when the 4 people with various electrodes connected to their bodies woke up together in bed, there were already more than a dozen people around them. Hey, you're awake, can you talk? How do you feel? Let's see what number this is. The 4 people shook their heads and moved their hands and feet tentatively. Then they sat up from the bed and answered one by one. 2. I just feel a little pain in my back and a little sleepy. Me too, and I feel very hungry and sleepy. My waist hurts a little. I'm the same as them. I also want to go to the bathroom. Some people observed the data on the machine, while others gathered around to simply test the 4 people's nerve reactions, vision, hearing, etc. As the data was collected piece by piece, everyone smiled. Now the 4 of them are in good physical condition. More detailed data needs to be carefully checked later. The brain reacts clearly and quickly and can keep up with the basic questions and answers. Everyone's excitement could no longer be concealed. At this time, a woman in her 40s wearing a white coat stood up and announced loudly, I declare that the first alien contact experiment was a complete success. Oh, great. I participated in a major historical event. This event will go down in history. We are all witnesses of history. Clap, clap, clap. Warm applause rang out in the hall, and it lasted for a long time. After a while, the woman in her 40s stretched out her hand and pressed down. Okay, comrades, be quiet, the next work needs to be done quickly. Our warriors haven't eaten yet. You can't fill your stomach just by clapping. Ha 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 ha. The people in the hall laughed. Don't worry, director. I have notified the canteen to send food, and you can eat after blood and urine tests. Yes, no one can let these heroes starve. This can also be regarded as a celebration banquet. In the joyful atmosphere, the 4 people on the bed took off the electrodes on their bodies and ran to the bathroom with the small tubes for urine tests. It seems that there is no problem with the limbs, and the walk is very stable. The coordination has not been damaged. Remember all these data, which are important materials. In a certain office, a young man ran in happily with a mobile phone and whispered congratulations to a man in his 50s who was reviewing documents behind the desk. Leader, the research institute has just sent a message that the 4 people who went there have returned safely and are in very good health. Further detailed examinations are being arranged, but the first contact experiment was a perfect success. As he said this, he handed over the phone. The man in his 50s happily took the phone and looked at it carefully. The middle-aged man looked up in surprise, took the phone, and looked down at it carefully. Really? This is great news. I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. On the first day, one of the experimenters fainted. I was so worried that I couldn't sleep all night. I was afraid that the 4 people would get sick. Now I can finally put my mind at ease. The leader can sleep well this time. I'm so excited that I can't sleep now. The phone was filled with all kinds of detailed information reports. It was a bit boring for an outsider to read, but he was very interested and couldn't put it down. After a while, when he finished reading everything, he deleted all the information on the phone and returned the phone to the young man who had just come in. Put your cell phone away. I don't need to tell you anything else. Read the confidentiality agreement several times. We can't let anything go wrong here. Yes. Don't worry, leader. I can recite the confidentiality agreement to you right now. Stop talking nonsense. Guo Fuminqiang told Yang Zhao the news that the 4 people had returned safely and said that after the results of the detailed physical examination of the 4 people came out, a second round of experiments would be conducted. This time the number of people coming might increase to 26, so she must be prepared. She really should be prepared. At least she should rent a larger yard to live in. Although these little beam people have not been here for a long time, she still has to provide a place for them to stay and rest. Although she can take them to the inn, next time there are more than 20 little beam people coming, her small yard will not be able to accommodate them. She must change houses to rent. In addition, Yang Zhao is considering whether to recruit a worker locally. At that time, she can split into teams, one person leading a team of little bean people, so that she will not be too busy and delay those people's time. Each of them came with their own purpose, which is the so-called short time and heavy task. Yang Zhao found a pawn shop and was led by the young man in the shop to run around the city for a day. Finally, she rented a courtyard with 2 entrances and more than 20 rooms, which is 4 times the number of rooms in the courtyard she rented now. But the rent also increased to 23 taels of silver per month. You still have to wear a mask to protect yourself. Young people will only feel uncomfortable for a few days, but it is a disaster for the elderly, especially for those with underlying diseases. I wish you all good health, peace and happiness. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.